Our next guest hails from Singapore. He's a YouTuber, a comedian, and a genuinely good guy. He was extremely open and honest when we spoke, and I really enjoyed getting to know him more. This is There's Something About Hirzi Zulkiflie.
So yeah, 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped it. No, okay, clearly I got the wrong lyric.
It's 10 green bottles sitting on a wall. 10 green bottles sitting on a wall. If
Bottles
one green bottle
don't
should
sit.
accidentally fall.
10 green bottles sitting on the wall.
Anyway, we're live, Hirzi.
Yeah, hi.
Welcome to the podcast. We can find this
Hanging on the wall. They don't sit. Bottles don't sit.
Hang on the wall.
Yeah, they just hang. They chill.
We'll have to validate that later.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us.
Hey, no problem, man.
So, Hirzi, you're a guest that I was interested in having on because, we've had conversations before, but not huge, long ones. So this would be one
Because
of
I
our...
hate talking to you, Paul.
There you go. But now you're locked in. You've
Yeah.
got no choice.
Yeah, he trapped me with a table and incense.
which we should get going. But yeah, like the conversations that I have had with you were interesting and insightful, and I enjoyed them. So I think it's cool to have you on.
Thank you.
Obviously, you're a YouTuber and a comedian.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to tell us a little bit how you got started in that, and take us through a brief outline of your career? Can you do brief?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Whatever you request, sir. Hi, this is my Tinder bio. My name is Hirzi. I'm 32 years old. I am a full-time cutie and a very skilled, top performing comedian of the world. Award-winning as well. Thank you for shout out Asian Academy Creative Awards for the award I got last year. Thank you. But that's basically, I'm part-time shaman now as well. I am an enigma on my own, and that's why Paul found me interesting enough to bring me as a guest. As you can realize, I cannot stop addressing the camera because my rising's a Leo, which we'll get into later. Astrology. Little teasers of topics we'll get to.
So you've set the bar high for this conversation now. There's a lot to live
Your
up to.
your other guests have big shoes to fill after me. You might as well close the podcast after I'm the season finale.
And one of the reasons that I found it interesting that we chatted before was because you're talking about shamanism and stuff like that, but we'll get into that later. But that's hence why we have this.
What is that? That sounds so good.
Incense here. It's copal, COPAL. It's like a resin, I think. A bit like frankincense. It's kind of cool, huh?
I love it.
Yeah, I can give you a chunk of that.
I love it. It's like Arabic oud.
It's a bit like wood.
Yeah.
Very
Gahru.
good.
Gahru. Munah would say. Munah's my best friend. She's Arab.
So Munah is
yes.
your comedy partner. Would you say that?
Is this all being captured on camera?
Is this too smoky for the camera? It's giving us a nice ambiance.
I like it. Yeah.
It's atmospheric.
If the fire alarm goes off, do we just
stay put.
bring everything goes with?
Stay put,
Stay put. Okay.
Just stand by the umbrellas for the equipment.
In for the death. So Munah's your comedy partner? Is that what we would say?
I mean, I've had many comedy partners. It's been almost 2 decades now. It's 13 years on YouTube. 10 with Munah.
Hang on. 13 years.
Yes, sir.
It's 2021.
2008 would be the start.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's pretty early.
We used to coin ourselves the founding prince and princess of YouTube in Singapore.
Right.
We were the first few channels. Wow, this is choking me up a little bit, huh?
Do we put it out? I can put it out.
You know, there's a joke about this. If let's say the smoke gets to you, then you are the demon.
Oh really?
Yeah, that's why I'm like demon.
You're worried that is. Why don't I put it over there?
Yeah.
You can carry on telling us about the start of YouTube.
This is a bit much. We wanted the ambiance, and now
Over here's nice.
we're dying. Yeah. How much of it did you burn?
A little rock, but it's on the the charcoal that you put in the shisha.
Yeah.
It's that, so I think that makes it a little bit smokier as well.
I can breathe now. Okay,
All
so
right.
13 years on YouTube, 10 years with Munah, 3 years going solo, and a huge part of that 3 years, I've expanded my collaborations with other people like Benjamin King on the Benzi project. I did a couple of stuff, almost like a podcast series with Dikosh as well at that point of time. I I just love now that I have different collaborators for different styles of things, and I see our baby, and it has the DNA of what is Hirzi and what is the other artists I work with as well. Because when you were doing work for 10 years with a partner, you don't know which part of it is your DNA. But now that I get to see it in different collaborators, I'm like, that's my extension of the art.
So it also helps you understand what you bring to it and what you can do?
Yeah, and it helps you repurpose your creativity differently, because different artists and collaborators like bring to the table. It's just a different baby daddy.
No, but I would say like we're all different versions of ourselves depending on the situation. So like I'm a different version of myself at work.
You're a fake, that's what you are.
At work, I am. Absolutely. Like if I was my true self, I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
I'm a different version here. Do you know what I mean? There's things right now that I might say in my normal life that I wouldn't say here. Right?
But the thing is, I think it's not my personhood that I am talking about. It's my artistry. So there is a singular Hirzi DNA. There is a tone to my artistry. There is a voice, a messaging that I always bring about, and an influence as well. So that, I think, is standard across the board. So introduced with a different baby daddy, you produce different things. Like with Munah, for example, our 10 years, we were cheeky and naughty. Sparring with a girl collaborator, you have that balance of gender as well, that you get to say things while the other gender balances it out. And then with Ben, it was a Malay artist with a Chinese artist, both of us cisgendered males. So the conversations that we brought about were also different, but so important. And I like to think that most of my work is culture. It's obnoxious, but that's my Leo rising talking. It's culture. Like the Benzi project is culture. Munah and Hirzi is culture. And the stuff I do alone, it's also culture. It's very purposeful for me.
I bet as a performer that you're contributing to culture, right? Hopefully in a good and entertaining way.
Yeah.
That I think what you're saying is therefore you're an ingredient, and depending on what other ingredient you're putting it with depends on how much of your ingredient and how your ingredient works with it.
I guess I think the reason why I'm addressing the culture of it all is because there is a stigma of being content creators online, that you just regurgitate content and produce things that are called content. There is no artistic value when you are deemed as an online creator, but I refuse that. Because I don't call my work content, I call them bodies of work. It's much like how when one of my biggest idols is this late 50s filmmaker. His name is P. Ramlee. He's a writer, director, actor, and he influenced my work a lot. And when you see his work, at the point of time, he won't just call it... they call it film because it was cool and avant-garde at that point of time. But we now respect it as bodies of work. We see his mind and the depth of his artistry. And I hope one day when I'm long gone, people look at my channel and go, oh my God, these are bodies of work that he created. And I'm very precious about my art, that unlike other content creators, I don't produce it residually. I don't have videos every week. I might do once a year, and I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Now I am. I used to be a Leo, and I used to be like, oh my God, I'm not producing things. But now I'm like, it's okay. I can be patient with art. Because I do art.
Yeah. No, it's cool, but I think like content's like such a broad term. Do you know what I mean? So like if I hold my phone here and talk to it and whatever and put it online, then that's content.
Yeah.
Not very good content. What we're doing here is content. A little bit better than me standing there with my phone, but still not that good. But then like a movie.
Yeah.
A cinema movie's content, and it just depends where you straddle. But when are you saying like if you're on YouTube, people kind of bundle you in together with the people on their phone, sort of thing? Because your stuff's not like that. Yours is like really nicely produced.
Thank you. There is that stigma, and I don't mean to shit on other online creators. The stigma is that your mama telling you your time of birth? Is it?
No.
Oh. It's another person.
Wait. Hirzi's gonna give me a reading.
Yeah.
But I don't know my time of birth.
See, that's the.
So my phone is on because I've asked my dear mother to call me and let me know if she knows
on
what time I'm born. So excuse any interruptions. Please carry on.
Where was I? Oh, online creators. It's not their bodies of work that I am like critiquing, because some people just want to create funny sketches, and there's nothing wrong with that, and nor do I water down their artistry in it. It's the stigma that traditionalists have against online creators. People who write scripts for TV and film and see what online people are consuming these days, they just lump it as online creators. But I do take time to cook my body of work. Like, I cook it. I'm a production student. I did my degree in creative producing also, so I have that very classic approach to a body of work. The way I write, the way I produce, it's the classic school of thought in any film school, and I'm very proud of it. Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
No, it shines through. It really, really does. Like, so my industry is advertising and content creation, and I can see it in it. Like, I think the first time I saw one of your videos, I was like, oh wow, like you really put some time and thought into it. Like the art direction's nice, the grade. I can't remember the name of the guy that does your stuff.
Ed,
yeah, like he shoots like really nice.
Oh, he's a God-sent gift. So like even casting, I would put specific people who have resonance in the community for a very purpose. Even though they're cameos, like say 10, 15 seconds on the whole 3-minute clip, there's a reason. Like Vandam is joking, I use a lot because I think it's so powerful to continuously put the image of a Malay Muslim drag queen in our culture in the video. And sometimes you don't even have to explain much why she's there. Mm-hmm. There is that. I mean, I have a reason why I put specific scenes the way she does things, but just for the community to witness it, it's culture. And back to Ed. Ed is a godsend gift for me. How I met him was so funny. He bumped into me at the gym. He rocked up to me, this white man, and I'm like, who are they flirting? Like, who the guy at a water cooler trying to like get fresh with me? Because he kept staring at me, and like I was like, oh, I'm gonna linger with my bottle.
This is your account of the meeting.
This is my account of the meeting. But
we'll get his another time.
Yeah, he was like sort of. You should. He's a solid guy. When it comes to producing videos and just directing. So eventually he walks up to me and says, "You're Hirzi, right?" And I flipped. Like, why does this white male know who my name is and pronounce it so correctly as well? Because you haven't been.
You can school me on that in a second, but please finish the story.
And so he then says, "I've seen your work online and I am so impressed. I'm such a fan of your work." So he actually comes from the background of advertising as well. That's why his art direction, his directing, his DOPing is so quality. It's advertising finesse.
It's nice.
And it wasn't something that I was used to until I met him yet. It's so well produced. And so he says, at that point of time, this was 2018, he says, if ever you want to consider me as one of your DOPs, let me know. This is my contact. So I followed him out on Instagram, not once remembering, because I'm like, I can never pay this guy. I can never afford his rates if he's from the advertising world. You know how expensive advertising world is. But so one day, I think we were shooting This Is Singapore in 2018, and I was stuck in KL, and my DP that I had asked, and I usually ask, sort of forgot that he had a double booking that day. And so I had to scramble the DP within 4 days before I arrived back in Singapore, because all the casts were booked, the location were booked, and I produced it in time for that specific day. So it had to happen. And I remembered Ed.
The man by the water cooler.
Yeah, the man by the water cooler from the advertising world with rates I can't afford. And I said, you know what? There is no shame anymore. I am at the bottom of this attempt of a video. Either I ask or I don't. And so I said to him, I have no money and budget for this. It's literally a passion project, and I want to do a music video. This is my first solo drop since Munah and Hirzi. Are you keen on it? And when he heard that we were doing a version of This Is America, a political statement piece around the world, and every country dropped their version of it, he was game. And he said, can I have the lyrics for it? And he fell in love. He liked that I was not just doing a parody, but I was doing a statement piece.
Yeah, a message within it, right?
And that weekend, within 4 days, we wrangled the extras, we wrangled the art direction, we got the location. He literally was in Australia and I was in KL doing a show. he changed his flight so he could arrive a day earlier so we could do a recce. I respect this man, and like if ever I do work that I can say, can he please be my director? I always do that. So I think a lot of people can't afford the rates though lah. I mean, I can't speak for him, but but if ever, please hire Ed when you want to work with me, and have the budget for it. Thank you. But Ed's amazing, and ever since then he continued to do my parodies on my solo channel. It's so hard to fill his shoes. Like it's his work.
It's nice. There's a consistent look and feel through it, like the art direction in it, and I saw something he did of his own as well, like where he's stuck in his flat in COVID.
Yeah, oh wow,
That
this
was,
guy
like,
did his
really
research.
good.
He's solid. Yeah, I love that.
Good.
And I'm saying this, like I keep saying that the budgets for what I'm assuming his budget, but when it comes to me, he's always been generous and gracious. So I got a shout out to him. When he does work for me and with me, it's really because he likes to do cultural statement pieces. He came from advertising background, and I think like there's just this hunger and pang to be a part of the culture. So now he does things for Benjamin King as well. Ben does the Ben and Ann show, where they do music videos and music parody covers. So he shot a lot of their music videos as well. It's really cool. He now has a... You know how I'm talking about each artist has their own DNA? Now we see Ed. When you see a body of work, now you get to say, oh, that's Ed. This whole podcast is a love letter to Ed, basically. I should send him this. He would love it.
No, but he, I think, you can definitely see like his the level of quality in the work, and that piece that he did, it was really cool. Like it's himself, like by
quarantine
in his flat during lockdown quarantine time. And he's kind of like, he's talking about how he's rapping, right?
Yeah.
Did he write it himself?
He wrote it.
Right. So and it's quite long, you know, and how he's going mad, am I going insane? But he's like shot it in different ways, and he's like just using whatever's in the kitchen, and it must have taken a while. It was a really cool piece.
It did, and like, you know, he's been wanting to put it out, but he kept being precious about like he's such a meticulous DP and director, even because he does all the post-production as well. Every little thing is like, for example, if I want to give you how meticulous his example was, I remember on set, this was Nasi Kangkang, Vanda Miss Joachim was a part of the set. Now Vanda Miss Joachim appearing on that set was a statement piece to a trans personality in Malaysia that is currently being watched by the eyes of the law, and she was jailed because of certain incidents that had happened. And so I had put Vanda in the same coloured Malay outfit, and we wanted to be a little bit more discreet with how we talked about that issue by just visual imagery. And so instead of handcuffs, I wanted Vanda to be roped, because we were taking ourselves back into the olden 50s, 60s. So we wanted Vanda to be roped. And the roped were the colours of a trans flag: baby pink, baby blue, and white. Now my art people on the day had mistaken the color options, because I was very specific. I said baby pink, baby blue, and white, because that's the color of the trans flag, right? They had gotten instead vibrant blue, vibrant pink, and white, which is the colors of the bi flag, which waters down the messaging of why we got Vanda on board. And I was so specific about that one note, but we had no time. We couldn't recolor that rope, and like I said, you know what, like it's a give and take right now. I'm just gonna go and flow with this. Add on post, frame for frame, recolors the rope to baby pink, baby blue, and baby white. So when you see that clip, Ed meticulously recolored the rope when Vanda does that, and the rope was moving everywhere. So you can just imagine the level of just details.
So it's probably, is it 2 seconds or 3 seconds?
I can't remember it, but like she was walking with it, and then she flips it open, remember?
So it must be like 100 frames that he did, at least.
Ed, you know what? Just cut this whole part up, and I'll send this to him. This is my love letter to Ed. I love him. I love him so much. And like, sometimes I get like all these small influencer gigs which doesn't pay me enough, and I'm like, I would really like Ed because he could really do something about it. But at the same time, I want to respect him. I think when I work with Ed, it is a statement or a body of work that will forever be online, and people remember it. None of his bodies of work has been less than 500,000 views.
Yeah,
on
right.
my
Okay,
channel.
there
yeah,
you go.
Yeah. So very precious. Well, there is Jealous, but like Jealous was like just a tongue-in-cheek thing. It's not a cultural piece. That one had client involved, so I won't count that in. I won't count that in. Yeah.
That's different. That's very good. And I think like YouTube, when you sort of look at it, and it only came to me when we were talking then, you know, you talk about when you started and how up to now, and early you felt this pressure to put out a lot and not so much. It's kind of like a timeline, right?
Yeah.
And you see like an evolution of the work and your art as well, and you yourself, I guess. And then you see maybe like, you know, it changes when Ed comes into it, and so it's kind of cool.
I think the pressure that we're highlighting right now of like producing content non-stop is the relationship an online creator / artist, if he deems himself one, has with how they earn money online. So unfortunately, a huge part of being an online artist now is the matrix of how many following you have, how many views can you generate, how many engagement can you get in it, because that would determine how many clients come to you in a year. And I would save a chunk of my money sometimes to just do it with passion project. So I need my matrix to go up. I need my engagement to go up. And for me to do so, I have to create content residually at one point of time in my career. If I didn't, the followings won't increase. There's just no traction in that sense. Which gave me such a huge existential artistic crisis. Like, do I sell myself to the corporate devil, to the you know, capital devil, or do I continue to make bodies of work? And I'll be honest with you, I'm not the best show business person, but I am my own creative, and I'm very precious about that. So nowadays, I'm learning the relationship of how do I juggle the business end of it and the creative end of it. Because not a lot of corporates or brands want to put money on someone who continuously talk about political or cultural things. You know, sometimes people just want that easy viewing, like, no, just give me a list video of like why you want to use my products, you know, versus like, let me do a music video that has a commentary on this topic, and at the same time, your product will be in the forefront of it. And people get like, oh, that makes me nervous. And I understand that makes you nervous. So in a year now, I split my content I do for client to what I do for the culture. I'm so pretentious, the culture.
There's a balance, right, for sure. And you need to eat, and you need to be able to. It's your outlet, right? Outlet of expression.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So, going back to Nazi Kang Kang.
Yes.
Like, I think that's the first one that I saw. And I didn't even know what it is. So, like, Nazi means rice. What does
Kang Kang mean?
Yeah, what's the direct translation of Kang Kang?
Kang Kang is the act of someone spreading their legs.
Right.
Whichever position, standing, sitting, lying down, as long as you spread your legs, that's called Kang Kang.
So it can be used in any context. So, for example, it could be used by, like a ballet dancer would spread their legs.
Yeah, it's Kang Kang.
It could be used in a sexual sense.
And it's Kang Kang as well.
Right, okay.
But Nasi Kang Kang is a dish used in ancient animistic shaman practices where women would spread their legs over a plate of rice or a bowl of rice, do some rituals with incense or whatever, and have their vaginal juices flow onto the rice, serve it to the men that they want to spellbound them with love for the rest of life, and then lock them in. This dish or practice has since been taboo since Islam became such a huge part of Malay Muslim identity.
So it's like a serious thing that really occurred for a long time.
Yeah, it was infamous, and I still think like there's still contemporary movies made about it, but it's taboo. And that piece was to basically commentate on like the pluralism in Malay Muslim identity, because the Malays that Malay people know today, or what a foreigner like you might walk into right now and see and identify, is just a fraction of our timeline.
Yes.
If we snip when Islam penetrated into the region, we have a depth of history that hasn't been or been allowed to discuss since. On top of that, even the Islam that was introduced at the start to where it is today has had its evolution and Arabization, and nasi kangkang, as cheeky and like naughty the video was, it was me saying, what if I hack the timeline and allow us to just explore the depth of our history? Is that not part of our identity? And I think that's what I like about my artistry. It's so naughty, but truthful. It makes people uncomfortable because they have to look at the mirror and say, this is a huge part of our history as well. One of my rules for comedy is, you know where the line is, you don't cross it, but please step on it.
I think what's interesting is like, I don't know, like the things that you're talking about now are things that I've noticed since I've been here. So I've been here for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you talk about, you know, how there's several things, right? Like, so like the Malay people are the indigenous people of this region.
The archipelago,
so
yeah.
So Singapore right across into Indonesia and then back up into Malaysia, right?
Yeah.
And then beyond in the north of Malaysia, it starts to become more like Khmer, right?
Yeah.
Like Cambodia,
The Thais,
type, yeah. So it's like it's an ethnicity, but it's a broad term for a group of people that's like it's really intricate, and because it's island, it's made up of a lot of different types of ethnicities within that, or tribes. Yeah, like Bugis people, for example, they were like more like pirates traditionally, right? And
sea people
living on the sea. Yeah. So it I see how it's kind of Malay people have been just painted with one brush, and I feel like, you know, governments need to classify people to a certain extent, I guess, or whether they need to or not. Sorry, maybe that's not right. They do. But in doing so, a lot of culture's lost.
Get watered down, yeah.
Right? And often in history, Indigenous people have been... a lot of wrongdoings have occurred. Right? Native Americans in America, Aboriginal people in Australia, Maoris in New Zealand. I don't see much I don't see that spoken about here.
Yeah. I have a blasphemous thing to say, at least within the community. We talk a lot about like white colonization of our culture, but we haven't addressed the Arabization of our culture, and if that is considered cultural colonization.
Right. But tell me more about it, because like I'm ignorant about it, right? So I understand what happens to Indigenous cultures.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I'm from Australia, right? So a lot of some of my friends are Aboriginal, and I've seen, you know, what they and their families have gone through, and it's not good. And white people came to Australia and just committed genocide. Do you know what I mean? And just, I think Aboriginal people were still classed under flora and fauna. Like,
really?
I think up until the 50s, or it might even be later. I might have that wrong.
Wow.
There was a program to breed out the Indigenous cultures, right? So it was something called the Stolen Generation.
Yeah.
There's a movie called Rabbit Proof Fence. Like, you should watch it. And you should have like a massive box of tissues next to you. Okay. Like, because if you don't cry when you watch that, then like you're not human.
In school,
or you're a white supremacist.
Back in my diploma, I had to do a UWA exchange, Western Australia.
Oh.
And they made us watch The Stolen Children. It's a film about the stolen children.
Yeah, Stolen Generation. Rabbit Proof Fence.
Is that the one? So many years ago, I can't remember the title.
There's two little girls. One's called Gracie, and you know, there's the fence, and they follow the fence to get home.
Yeah.
So you've seen it.
Yeah.
So my friend, his dad was Stolen Generation. So, you know, like this happened so recently. You know, in the context of time, it wasn't the other week. Yeah, so, you know, you see terrible atrocities that occur to Indigenous people. I'm ignorant about how it was here.
Same.
I went to the National History Museum, which I found very interesting, and I might be wrong that Islam came to...
around the 1400s.
1400s, was it? Okay. Yeah, I thought it was late 13, maybe.
1400s. Probably. I think so.
So I think, like, what always amazes me and one of the and did when I first came to Southeast Asia was like I visited some orang asli.
Oh,
Right, so like original people.
indigenous, yeah.
I stayed. Yeah, I was in Malaysia and I went to Tasik Chini, which is the second biggest lake system, and you know where people they were still living on floating huts, and then we went into the jungle and there's like literally people in bamboo huts that are off the ground because there's still tiger in the area. They have to cut down the big trees because when they fall down they kill people.
Yeah.
And they were like really in touch with
Their practices.
yeah. And then and that's when I first came to this region like 20 years ago. And then sort of when I came to Singapore, it was like, oh wow, that a lot of it's lost.
Yeah, and it's like how you describe it, a brushstroke now. Like Malay people is one identity, and the timeline or the culture that we have now is very postmodern. It's nothing deeper than that, and I think it's so sad. Like even if no hate to the museum, but even when you go to say what is that Malay museum, Kampung Glam Heritage Center, it is a Malay of a specific timeline, and it's not fun. Like I recently went to Mexico, and for the Western people watching this interview, I'll describe Malay people and compare them to the Mayans, okay? Because it's a similar historical incidences that had happened. So what we know about the Mayans was that pre-Hispania, before the Spaniards came over, they had their own ancient practices, their own temples. So think of the Mayan temples much like our Borobudurs of Java. There was a depth of culture, animistic, whatever it is, there was. And I guess Borobudur was a version of Buddhism in ancient Java. And when the Arabs came, it's like much like how when the Spaniards came to the region, they converted the people embraced the religion. And this is not an attack to Islam. I just want to declare that this is just a thinking point on how deep our culture is and now not accessible. The beautiful thing about the Mexicans is that their buildings are still there. The thing about our culture is, with the exception of Indonesia, none of these ancient relics still exist. So we only know that there's excavation sites in Kelantan or Perlis where they found old relics buried under these forests and mountains. And there's not much effort to dig up about it, like as if it doesn't matter. But maybe it does. Maybe it's cool to know how deep it is. Like recently what I found out is in Java, there's this mountain called Gunung Padang. Now, if you look at this mountain, it looks like a pyramid, but just a mountain. It's literally like a very triangular pyramid, but it's a mountain. And there were like some like leftover stones that were just left at the top of it, only to find out recently that scientists were excavating the sites, that the stones date further than, I forgot the timeline, but basically even in the timelines of, I want to say dinosaurs, that building existed underneath that mountain.
So there's a structure under there, but
there is a structure.
Soil has been blown over it, and
now it's
and
just a mountain that's
grow-
shaped like that. And so the Indonesian government, prior to the pandemic in 2018, sent, I think, a couple of millions of dollars to sort of excavate the site. Gunung Padang, we could search it, but they stopped. And it frustrates me because, like, what if we know more things? If you find a structure that dates way beyond the timeline that any human civilization archives have witnessed, why don't we want to find out? Why don't we want to have access to that? And I've been trying to like dig up about it the minute I found out, but apparently
no pun intended. Sorry.
The Indonesian government has not continued this site, and like now in the pandemic, nobody has the funds to want to like, let's spend money to dig up this site. But I'm excited because what if our people has knowledge, or Malay people will become the story center of human timeline and human history? Wouldn't that be cool?
It's amazing. Like I when I was at school, I didn't do history. I was kind of like, we had to choose between history and geography. So I was kind of like, I wanted to travel. So I was like, geography, I'll do that. And to be honest, I think the history that I would have got taught would probably not be the history that I was interested in, but like the ancients and stuff like that, I find like truly fascinating. And I think like now, like you almost feel like for us to move forward, we need to go backwards in some ways as well. And you can learn from like these older cultures. And I do think the history that gets taught in schools is just the textbook version.
It's
and
the edited version. It's
there's
the version
way more there.
they want you to hear.
Exactly. And then like, you know, the issue of, or the consideration of pyramids, like, you know, like everyone thinks of like pyramids as just Egypt. You know what I mean? But like the Mayans had pyramids.
And now we found out the Malay archipelago did too.
Right. There's pyramids in Bosnia.
Oh yeah?
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Like, so there's several things to it, right? Like how were these structures made? Like these vast structures. Why in different parts of the world are they of the same shape? And like
It's a trend.
but
Architectural trend.
But there's technology within it, right? There's technology within it, and there's knowledge within it. And how was that knowledge being passed, right? Like so how does like knowledge go from that? Who knows where it started?
Yeah.
Right? But how does it exchange to all continents in a way?
Did you know that Australia's doing this thing? So they're building something in Tasmania. It's like a vault where they keep archives and writings of how we might have... Can I say vulgarities? I can, right?
Yeah.
How we might have fucked up through climate change. So basically, they chose Tasmania because it's a geographically and politically safe space and not turmoil at all. They're going to create this vault in case the planet goes into kaput, that the future human civilizations might find this and understand where we went wrong.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's so cool that Australia, and like of all continents, obviously Australia, because it's so like away from the rest of the problem region.
It's remote.
Yeah. And Tasmania, of course, even separate from the major continent. And like I'm thinking, if we are so forward thinking for the future civilization to understand where we fucked up, why can't we look at, like, maybe there are clues that our ancestors were also trying to drop, like how did their civilization disappear and what are information and knowledge that disappear. One of the things that I find cool is now that I'm into some kind of like knowledge of ancient shamanistic practices, what if there are technologies in ancient practices that have access to things that the current human civilization don't know and don't have yet? And that mind blows me a bit.
They definitely did have technologies like there's that were better than ours. Like there's documented evidence, like, and that's why I think that this side of history and like the ancients is so interesting and cool. Like I was listening to a podcast last night. It was last night, and it was talking about the tools used in Egypt and how they were. There was a structure that has like a cylindrical tunnel in it, and that, you know, it's clearly done by a machine, right? So like when we think of machine now, we think of like metal bits and clunk, 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 but it was done by something mechanical because it can't be done by a human due to the perfection of it. And they were able to analyze, like, you know, the hardness of the stone it was drilling into, the width, and I think it must be because like grooves on the side of the wall, they could tell, like, you know, how deep it went per revolution, right? And it was digging at a faster rate, or boring at a faster and more efficient rate than the current tools we have today, like using like diamond tip tools and stuff like that. But nobody knows how or why, and the other thing that they were saying is like, and again this history is like the textbook or the stuff taught in school of the Egyptian or Egyptology, is that a word? Or the history of Egypt.
I'm sure there's a word for
the
it.
history of Egypt. There was several things that I found mind-blowing. You hear about Cleopatra and stuff like that.
Who's not a dead celebrity, Munah. Just shout out to me for it.
Cleopatra, when she was closer to the iPhone than the creation of the Great Pyramids.
Oh.
Which is crazy. All this stuff about the pyramids being tombs for pharaohs was concluded by white people. And that before these white people came and put forward these theories that became like fact, that the Egyptians spoke of and learnt of like people before.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name for them, but there was like a civilization before, and that all this stuff.
Mesopotamia.
Their word for it was starting with K, right? But this was done in a time in like the 1400s where like, you know, the Sahara was green,
right,
and a forest and stuff like that, and Egypt was very different to how we sort of know it to be.
It was probably a time where the whole world was one supercontinent.
That's Gondwana land.
Gondwana?
Right?
Oh my god, you know too! Gondwana, yeah. Gondwana.
Yeah, but I don't know, I can't remember what sort of timing that was. But like, I think my point being is like, okay, there's a focus in Egypt. People dig it up a lot. People discover what they discover and, I don't know, publish what they publish. But in these sites, and like this one in Indonesia, there's definitely clues. There's definitely stuff that like can give insight into God knows what, like, and why we're here even, perhaps.
The frustrating thing about the Malay timeline is that we are such an obscure race in the world, or ethnicity in the world, that people don't care what the culture doesn't bother researching. And I think the stakeholders within the Malay world right now, you know, all the politicians and all, they don't feel the necessity to dig that up anyways.
But why? Why aren't they interested in it? Like if I was Malay, personally, I would want to know, like, for sure I'd want to know, like, the tribalism within my blood. I'd want to know where I was from, where my father, mother, and generations back, and what they did, where they're from, like...
Correct. And those research exists, like, within the tribes of, like, oh, these are these tribes, these are that tribe. But I think anything that sorts of picks away into the... this is going to be blasphemous again. The Muslim identity of today, they find that risky and dangerous, I think. Because to go into that depth of history just opens a can of worms. And frankly, not a lot of Malay in the... I'm not talking about Singaporeans, I'm talking about just the Malay world are bothered to want to know deeper. Then I'm sure there are individuals out there, research theses writers and everything, archaeologists that wants to dig deep, but there's not a lot of platform that creates a bigger universal library for us to have access to it.
Because what? But I don't know why. Because it's not considered important, or
it hacks into a already fundamental Arabized culture now. I keep going back to that because I see that that's what's happening. Maybe not so much in Singapore, but the region. More and more, we're becoming more Arabized with how we are being regimented. And there is no importance placed in digging anything outside of whatever they want us to be fed. It's propaganda, basically. It's easily more unifying if we don't know too much. I think.
I think like religion can be a beautiful thing, and it can really, really help people with focus in their life. It can help people be good people. It can help people overcome bad periods in their life, and give them like a goal and a hope. And you know, like every religion, the ethos is just basically be a good human. Do you know what I mean? Treat people how you want to be treated. Sort of just don't be a prick. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that is a good thing, right? Like, I'd like to think that it can be harmonious with culture. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's why. Yeah, I think it's sad that a lot of these things have been lost. Like, I expected to come to Singapore and integrate with Malay people, and that they would know about like stories and like those sort of animism type of legends and things like that. So like in Australia, growing up, like I remember reading like books and stuff like that, and it talks about the dream time. and this is when the earth was created, and like
snakes created the river.
Exactly, the serpents, right? And the
Aborigin knowledge.
Yeah, like, and I even remember like kids would have books on it. Do you know what I mean? So even as a white kid, like, or not a non-Aboriginal kid, I was learning about these cultures, and I think that they should be. I think I should have had to have learned that at school.
Yeah.
I didn't have to. It wasn't part of the curriculum, but we should have some.
Excess.
Yeah, well, no, I should have been taught Indigenous culture at school, I believe, because that's the true landowners of that country of Australia, and I think it's a shame that it's not that way in many countries.
It could be, and like we're so meddled with like new histories now that things are just built over the other. So we might be standing on grounds that are sacred and like have deeper, but now it's a factory. You know. That said, though, I would not fault the Malay people of today for the culture they identify with. I think culture is forever evolving, and who's to say whatever we are now is not culture? It probably is. It has been edited and tapered into, but I always lobby for pluralism in my identity to being a Malay Muslim. I want to have access to as much as I want and make a statement for myself. I don't want you to say who I need to be. I'll decide that for myself. And that's what my bodies of work have shown, at least in Nasi Kangkang. It's like, it's so hard that all these things are in a 3-minute video, because when you watch it, you just think, that's them being dumb again. But the visual imagery, the messaging that I put, even like with Vanda being in trying to represent a trans person, it is all milked through just the emotion you get and evoked when you watch my clip of Nasi Kangkang. You just go like, what is this thing that I'm a part of as well, but I don't want to address? And that's what I like.
Now, remember they used to get the DVD?
Yeah.
And you watch the movie, and then if you can be bothered or you're really into it, you can watch the bit where I think it was like director's commentary.
Huh?
Yeah, like I'm sure this used to be a thing. Do you know, like when you got the DVD, right? So
yeah, you had an option.
This was 1950.
DVD. I'm not that old.
But you had an option basically where you could watch the movie and then you'd have the voiceover directors, and they'd be saying, I had this shot, and the reason we had him,
right.
You get to understand their thoughts about maybe why they did the scene a certain way, or what was going on.
See, maybe you need to do that for yours, or you could go back and do some explainers, right? So you voice over what's sort of happening, and this is why, and this is why these ropes and these colours.
Yeah, but what I also think is important, I think it's called new historicism, how to appreciate art is the viewer too has their own input and not so influenced by what he read about the artist's description of his work. It's just as important. And I like that. I picked that up in college, and I was like, I think I'd like if people see my work and found their own meanings of it. Whether they agree with me, got offended by me, I created an emotion, then my work has been successful.
And that's what I think about art. Like I did art at school, and I always thought, and it wasn't necessarily what the teacher thought, but I always thought art should it just needs to create a reaction, and ideally an emotion. But excuse me, that can be it can make someone feel like nice and relaxed because it's just visually a beautiful picture. Or it could be like inflammatory and cause someone like anger or change their point of view. Like it doesn't necessarily need to make someone feel good, but it must cause a reaction. My favorite reaction, if anyone can feel from my work, is restless. Because I feel my ancestors and my displacement of my culture feels restless. So if you feel restless, then maybe I managed to, like, when you look at it, you just feel like, oh my god, like, what do I feel about this? I feel something about it. I'm not sure how I feel, and I need to process that sort of thing. And the internet is a very interesting platform because you gotta create content funny enough or layman enough for the lowest
I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but for the most common denominator. So someone who don't have understanding of avant-garde language or history and timelines, where they just want to watch it for easy viewing, that has to be the primary purpose served. Like, okay, is my view going to be funny enough for the layman?
Yeah, you want someone to watch it.
Correct. But for the thinkers, I want them to watch it and pick at it. I've had many university students writing papers of my bodies of work, and it always touches me when I see them tweeting about it or like tagging me in it. Yeah, and I love it. I feel like my idol, P. Ramlee, the 50s filmmaker that I always reference a lot. Yeah, maybe I am his reincarnation.
So then, going back to ethnicity, do you know the history of your family?
My family's funny. So my mom is very expressive of what she thinks of. Let me pour this so that the sound doesn't.
All good. Sounds and looks great.
A tranquil sort of water feature.
So my mom likes to think she knows the extent of our racial breakdown.
You say it like she doesn't.
I feel like she just wants to know what she has is what she imagines to have. So what is very clear, and I agree with, is that she has ancestors from Malacca. She was born in Singapore, but she has family in Malacca.
Okay.
And we are from a Minang community. Minang, your nasi padang aunties?
I don't know.
So nasi padang. Minang people are from Sumatra.
Okay.
And a huge part of our culture is that men merantau. Merantau is the act of travel to acquire knowledge, and you don't come back home until you have new knowledge to introduce to your people. So that's how we became a community of like very skilled and learned people. We travel out of the home, come back with knowledge.
So like a trader would take their spices and swap and barter them or swap them for something else and bring that back.
Except with knowledge.
You guys with knowledge.
Yeah, and so because of this movement, there are a couple of Minang communities that are very, very stronghold, and these are usually the more big trading ports. So Singapore has a huge Minang community. Negeri Sembilan as well is the biggest one in Malaysia. And Malacca, because of its proximity to Negeri Sembilan, has their own Minang community as well. Padang being the main motherland for Minang people. Minang people also... Malay culture is so cool, guys. Minang people also are one of the only matriarchal societies and civilizations in the region before Islam. Yeah, and so I did a research about how Minang people... And I believe Minang people were the first few people that adopted Islam in our region, apart from the Malaccan Sultanate, because that was a trading post of its own, right? So, I have so many stories to tell. I don't know where to start. But Minang people is my mom's heritage. She likes to also say that we have Portuguese blood and Arab blood in us. We can never confirm this. So I settle for being Minang. Now, my dad's side, my grandmom is Javanese, with a Chinese, I want to say grandmother or mother, and a lot of my aunts and uncles from my dad's side has very Chinese aesthetics, or not aesthetics, Chinese looks.
Features.
There you go. That's the word I was looking for. And as a kid, I look more Chinese than I do now, actually. So when I grew up, a lot of aunties would speak to me in Mandarin. Yeah, that's my breakdown. But what do you want to know about Minang people?
Well, I think it's super interesting. And like, so one, I never knew about Minang people. Like, I never knew Minang.
Yes.
Okay. So see, I didn't. I mean, in this region, I kind of knew about like the Bugis people. Just Orang Asli is a generic term, right, for like a regional sort of person or an Aboriginal type of people.
Yeah. There's so many tribes,
and that's what I think is like amazing, and I don't want to harp on it. Like, I think it's such a shame that like people don't know, because if people know, then those stories, the information, foods, medicine, from the jungle and stuff like that would still be more alive. No,
I
I'm not
think-
saying it's dead, but
Yeah,
more alive.
I think the Malay people know about our subcultures and our tribes. I think what doesn't happen enough is this knowledge that outside the Malay community can have. I think within Singapore, anyone who goes to a museum can research about all the different tribes, right? But I don't know why the Malay world or the archipelago is not as exciting or sexy enough for the Western world to like go, I want to know more about these people. It is when my Western expat friends, and I say Western because not even the Asians in the West country know how diverse Asia is. When I speak to them, they understand Asian as AAPI, which if you speak to an Asian person here, we don't associate ourselves with Pacific Islanders.
What's AAP?
Asian American Pacific Islanders. So they would consider Hawaiians and Filipinos as part of this community as well.
Right.
Human anthropology would suggest so, that we come from the same genome, but culturally now, the contemporary culture of Asia, Filipinos feel different from Thais, feel different from Indonesians, feel different from Chinese. So the Western understanding of Asian culture is broader than they think it is. But back to my point. Western people, when they finally arrive in Singapore, for example, and finally understand, this is a Malay person, this is a Chinese person, and this is an Indian person, especially Malay person, because it's not too popular in Western media. They don't know our face.
No.
Yeah. So when you see us finally, and you're like, okay. I'll tell you honestly though, the first time I went to LA, the first time I met Mexicans, I thought they were Malay.
No, but like in the face, there's a similar visual.
Yeah.
There's a visual shape, and in the eyes as well.
Yeah. The first time I went to LA, I thought like, oh my god, there's Malay people. So I reached out to to a group of Mexicans and said, hi, Malaysia eh? And I said Malaysia, which just means, are you guys Malaysians? And they turned around and go, ¿Qué tal? And I was like, oh my god, they're not Malay. So there you go. I think what doesn't happen enough is interests outside our region, and maybe because we're obscure.
But, I think part of it is like, I think some countries have done very well in preserving like the historical side of what they have, right? Like the fact that you talk about Mayan culture, you can go to these Mayan temples.
Yeah.
But there's Indonesian government. There's something under there that could be amazing. And it's great that they looked to excavate it, and some countries have those type of funds. Do you know what I mean? And some don't, right? So that comes into it. But I reckon if they did peel back the layers, you would see a lot more. Like people go from all over the world to go to Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
To go to in the north in Cambodia, to Siem Reap and to sort of see
Angkor Wat.
Angkor Wat and Bayun, the one with
The
all the
Bayun,
faces, which I've been there and it's amazing.
It is.
Do you know what I mean? And those things, I'm sure exist around here, but they've just not been excavated.
Yeah, I'm sure. And we don't do a good job of branding as well. One of my biggest frustration of explaining to a Western person is what is Malaysian and what is Malay. I get so frustrated because...
Do you want to set the record straight?
Let me set the record straight. So think of a Malaysian as being American. Okay? You can have white Americans, Asian Americans, Latina Americans. Malaysian is a national identity.
A nationality.
A nationality. Malay is the ethnic group that is associated with people from the region. So when... And I have no problems with being associated with being a Malaysian. Like, it's just that I'm not. But when a Western person keeps insisting, so where are you from before this? And like, I'm supposed to explain and elaborate. I'm from Serangoon North, in the middle of Singapore. My mom was also like from here. My dad was from here. My mom may have moved up and down Malacca a lot because she has a village there. But essentially, I am a Singaporean Malay. One of the frustrating things to also explain is how Malay is indigenous to Singapore. I get frustrated because even our history textbooks try to tell otherwise. They like to think of Singapore as this vacant land that forefathers came together, like as if they were 4 avatars from the different fire land, and
They just rocked up and it was like, oh, cool, that looks nice. Let's just hang there.
Correct. And the truth is, Singapore sits in the Malay archipelago. It is in the name, Malay archipelago. Just because the majority of the Malays that are now here could have come from Bugis, could have come from Padang. You cannot call our corridor a vacant land. That's a colonial mentality. Where you're like, oh, okay, now we are all forefathers. I think what they're trying to do is level the playing field so that no Bumi Putra sort of law comes into the mentality of the Malay mind. Bumi Putra law is the rights of a Malay person in Malaysia. So if you are Malay, you have more rights over there. Or like the rights of being the sons of the soil, basically. That's what they directly translate it as. But the truth is, I don't think the Malay Singaporean here wants more privileges or more rights. We just want you to recognize that Singapore is indigenous to us. They like to say, oh, the only people that exist here were the Orang Laut, the seafaring people that lives by the coastal settlements of Singapore. The Orang Lauts are an archipelago tribe as well. So the sad part is we've been brushed in Singapore as one broad stroke of Malay. What I like to call our people is it's not a new name, but it is a name that I think we should start identifying as people from the region. Just because we're so multi-diverse with our tribes, I like to call us the Nusantara people. Nusantara is what directly translates as the Malay archipelago. I've
seen that word before. Nusantara.
So Nusantara immediately includes Indonesians, Borneans, Orang Aslis. We are from the archipelago. And that is a culture I can identify with. Sure, there is no one simple brushstroke as well, because the Orang Asli are as different as the Bugis people, but the Nusantara identity it's like being Mediterranean. You could be Spanish and you could be Italian, but Mediterranean identity is what sorts of like... Am I right to say Mediterranean?
Yeah,
like the Southern Europe.
No, I think what you're saying is... Because a lot of countries have...
common identities.
Well, they've got borders where people back in the day were restricted to it, right? Like it would have been hard for a Native American person to sort of just go, oh, fuck it, like, I'm gonna check out Rome.
You should just say la. I find it endearing. Fuck it, la. You said it.
I didn't think. But I'm just gonna go check out Rome. Like, one, it's too far. Two, my boat's not that good, right? Yeah. Where like, so people were restricted to a certain extent.
Yeah.
There was like canyons and things that might have made it difficult to go from here to there. But like here, there's so many different islands, and
it's a mess.
Just do a little paddle, and you're up there, and you're talking to a different tribe and different people. Like Philippines, they sort of have an identity within their islands, like Cebuanos and sort of.
Philippines fascinate me a lot, actually.
But here, the islands seem. There's just so
many.
That
what I like to think is
mashed up in a way.
God was carrying the Malay people's land and tripped and fell, and it broke and scattered. That's why the Malay archipelago is so... The word is messy, honestly.
Well, it's probably volcanoes.
But it's because we're in the Pacific Ring of Fire. So what I do know is when Gondwana was one big mass, this region was also one big mass, and it was called Sundalang. It's so funny because Sundalang in Malay means hall.
Right.
But the scientific name for our region was Sundaland.
There's a Sundaland in the UK, but it's not the nicest place that you ever want to be.
Yeah, but I think to say that the Nusantara people is an identity that we can have common sense with, that would be great. Because the Malays in Singapore, on our identity card, it says Malay, but we would say, oh, we're Javanese heritage, Boyan, Bugis, Minang. And it's so funny because if you bring the same principle to Malaysia and Indonesia, they would debate you because they don't identify as anything Indonesian or anything Malaysian.
They're very much Javanese.
Yeah, they're very different. And I can also empathize and understand because their history is richer and solid. If someone says they're Javanese and Indonesian and want to identify as that and say, I'm not Malay, I can understand. So it's the complexity and nuance of how diverse our people are and at which timeline they relate their identity to.
So is Malay something that white people came up with as a term?
I would like to think the Singaporean national identity tried to widen a broad stroke. So the rumor is, allegedly, and I think it's true as well because it's been repeated everywhere, when Singapore became a country separated from Malaysia and national cards were served out and given, people were putting Bugis and Javanese and Minang as their ethnicities.
Right.
And I think that created some kind of like an algorithm database stress because, oh my god, like what are all these ethnicities that we have to identify? Whereas a Chinese person would just say, I'm Chinese Hokkien or Chinese Teochew or Chinese whatever, right? And there was only 4 of them. We have like 10 million. And so they offered as, not an exchange, but they offered that if you identify as Malay on your national card, your education would be free for 10 years.
I see.
So your primary school to secondary school would be free for 10 years. And it was still true until up to the 2000s, I think. And I think now it's just free for everyone, I think. So, yeah. That's why many people now in Singapore are just Malay.
I can see why I can see why they'd have to do that.
Yeah.
Like in some ways, from a what would you call that, sort of a paperwork point of view, in a way, right?
It's like white Australians. They don't have to say I'm Spanish, I'm Finnish.
No. I
just
think
white.
I think they say Caucasian, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I remember at school they would ask you, what religion, like what type of religion, if people had it, but yeah, I think that they did do something like that too, because I've heard of people, and I actually researched it and read that it to be true, that if you were from Pakistan, India, or Bangladesh, you were just called Indian.
Yeah.
Like that's what it says on your NRIC or your card.
Yeah.
Which, like, Pakistan and India are at war.
Yeah.
Like at one point.
Correct.
And still not best of friends. So it's just like, oh no, you're Indian. So
Yeah.
I guess they have to do it, and I think, like, in some respects they're trying to create, there's a new nation, right? So they're trying to create harmony and less factions, I guess. So I can understand, but there's a byproduct of that, right? Which is where what we're talking about, all that rich history gets lost.
And it's very nuanced. So it's like, you give and take. I understand the struggle of discussing culture and unifying identities. It's very complicated. One of the things I always found interesting was when you talk to a French person, and let's say he's visibly someone from the African diaspora, and they're French. You ask them, "Oh, where are you from?" They will immediately know to say, "I'm French. Je suis en Français." That's wrong. Je suis en France. Je suis en France. That's what they would say. Je suis en France. And in Singapore, though, or in Asia, if you ask where you're from, they immediately assume you want to talk about their ethnicity. So then they'll try to say, "Oh, I'm Malay Singaporean" versus Singaporean. And it's so funny because in Singapore we would identify as our ethnic group within our own country, but when we're overseas, we would tell you we're Singaporean. And let me tell you why. I think we're a bunch of elitist Asians in Singapore. Like, Singapore has this mentality that we think we're better than the rest of Asia.
Other Asian countries in general,
That's our mentality.
they have that opinion of. I've
Singapore.
heard that.
Yeah. So we have a problem where we go overseas and they say, "Oh, you're Malay? You're from Malaysia. Oh, you're Chinese? You're from China." We want you to know first we're Singaporeans when we're overseas. Or within our country, we would tell you what our ethnicities are. So that idea of national identity doesn't really exist harmoniously for ourselves. It's just so that we get to separate ourselves from the rest of Asia. I think this is where the problem lies. So
you've travelled a bit, like, so you mentioned that you did studies in Western Australia.
That was just for a module in my diploma. The majority of me living overseas would be when I post-degree interned in LA.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so
cool.
My college was actually in Orange County College.
How long were you there for?
That was about 6 months that I had to intern in LA.
How old were you?
I was 23, 24.
Okay, that's a good age to be in LA.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so popular.
Really?
They're like,
Who's that Mexican with a different accent?
And with the Asian face. So they get so excited to see a Malay person because they don't. And honestly, this is me, just like 20% tan. I can go tanner, but I'm very fair. And I tan a lot when I'm about to go overseas. So they get so excited to see a brown-skinned Asian. On top of that, one of the most common thing I get is, "Oh, you speak English very well." Thank you.
I was gonna mention that actually.
Thank you. I'm so proud of my English.
Good job.
Yeah, I practiced right before I arrived. Yeah, so that age I was in.
But tell me more. Like, 23. Traveled before, I guess, in the region, but maybe not so far or to such a different culture.
No, you're wrong.
Okay.
That was probably the first beginning of me exploring the world.
Right.
Oh my god. Okay, so that wasn't my first time to the States, because before that there were a couple of modules that made me have to go up to our main campus in Orange, where we did documentaries and stuff. So the first time I stepped foot in America, it was mind-blowing. I understood, and I believe my college had such a huge part in the kind of identity and artist I am today. I understood what democracy was like. I understood what your rights to live was like. That this idea of a homogeneous Malay Muslim identity didn't make sense. Let me tell you a short anecdote, a true one that I won't repeat in Parliament if it's a lie. That's a snub if you've been following the news. Anyways, I was in San Francisco, and it was a pretty cool thing, this documentary module. I was in San Francisco, and we had to do research based on district. My group picked the card that said Castro. If anyone knows Castro is a rich historical epicenter for gay history. That's where the Harvey Milk case, the movement sort of like propelled the gay rights in America. So I was there, and I was at this cross junction, and I saw what looked like a South Asian family, hijabi, her husband clearly Muslim as well, pushing a pram. South Asian, all three of them. And on this side of the junction were a gay couple holding hands. And this Singaporean boy, obviously because of my history, and at the point in 2012 was pretty still discreet, like gays just exist within themselves, and like the main majority Muslim do not mingle. I was like, ooh, this is about to be a showdown. I just want to see at least like a shady little snap from the Muslim community, like just like an astaghfirullahalazim as they walk past or something. Astaghfirullahalazim means God forbid. So, oh, God forgive me actually. So I waited at the opposite junction just to see the showdown.
Did you have your phone out?
No, I didn't. At that point in time, the quality was shit too as well. So I just waited to see. I was like, something's gonna happen, or at least a snap. And as they crossed each other, to my surprise, they said hello and waved at each other and had a short exchange. They were neighbors.
That's cool.
And then they carried on their way. This was the image. Oh, I get goosebumps telling a story. This is the image that forever changed my perception of how a queer Muslim person can exist in this lifetime. Because there's a verse in the Quran that says, Lakum dinukum waliyadin. It's my favorite verse in the Quran. It says, to you, your religion, to me, mine. And in the Quran, it teaches you that you should coexist. And that's such a huge part of, if I go through what I understand of Islamic knowledge, when Muhammad was prosecuted by his own tribe in Yathrib, he went over to Medina where there were Jews and pagans, and these people saved him from his own tribesmen that were trying to kill him. They had basically what is modern day secular law, where they had their own Sharia law within their own tribes and communities, but a bigger umbrella of law that protects the community. This empowered me so much in my art. I'm getting emotional just talking about it.
But just like so that simple,
it's a
very normal thing for
minutes.
those two people, affected you in such a strong way, right?
Yeah,
Because you've never seen it before.
It was like God said, "Boy, watch this, because this is gonna change your life forever." And then I said, "Oh my gosh, this can exist. This can happen." And then the next few years, my life transpired the way it did, with Pink Dot, with my bodies of work, with being artistically lynched by the Malay community.
So it sort of made you feel like it's okay to be you.
It's okay to speak differently from the community, because I think the community don't know how the world can exist, because they don't have access to. They've been told a specific way, and slowly and surely I feel like I'm converting hearts where you can exist and you can believe in your right to believe. You can believe that homosexuality is still forbidden in Islam, and I'm not going to come for you. I'm just going to say, can we be neighbors? Because those people could.
Well, it's that other person's choice to, well, maybe not choice, but it's this other person's business to do what they're doing. The other person can not agree with it, but doesn't have to express it or judge it or
And that's
have
why
a reaction.
That's why I say that's how I understood what democracy is. Because I don't expect you to agree with my principles. I call myself center left. More on the woke side, not the woke side, more on the left liberal side of things. But I will stand up and defend your right to say and believe whatever you want to believe in, as long as it doesn't impede and be problematic to anyone's rights to exist. That's important to me. Say what you want to say, because then I have my right to say what I want to say. The freedom of speech is important.
Yes.
But please don't shackle my life for your right to believe in what you want to believe in.
Well, how you're living your life, it doesn't affect other people dramatically, right? So then that should be okay.
And on that note, I just want to say that I can't believe this is happening, because I told myself it won't, but I need to take a pee break.
I think you should.
I literally said, I want to go to the bathroom, but I need to go to the bathroom.
Go to the bathroom.
Okay.
You can like run over here. You can navigate all this.
I'll
I
pee
would
back.
take that. That's better. I'm glad you said to do that. I had to piss as well.
Oh yeah, back on. I'm zoning
Well
out. Yeah, it's lovely and a release.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I even got you a little towel that you could dry your hands on. So, an excellent host.
If people don't know the context of that, they would think these are all innuendos. They're not. They're a physical towel. And Act 2, action.
So you were talking about San Francisco and the passing of a South Asian Muslim family and a gay couple, and that sort of really changed your life, and I think that's really, really cool, and something that was like every day and you just happened to sort of notice it, and to have such a profound effect is nice.
Yeah.
So where else has your work taken, so that was for studies, like has your work taken you to other countries?
I've traveled mostly for stand-up. If anything, it's like TV shows in Malaysia. The only other country that I've dabbled stand-up in was Australia. It was for the Mardi Gras tour. It was pretty cool. This was right before the pandemic. So this was February of 2020.
2020?
Yeah.
The pandemic was...
Like March, it probably hit the world.
2020 or 2019?
2020.
Right.
I remember. It's because there were 4 Asians. So the idea was they wanted to brand a queer-friendly, queer-allied stand-up tour group that traveled Sydney, Melbourne, and Canberra for the Mardi Gras. And there was a Malaysian, Joanne Kam. There was Navin Noronha from India, Margaret from she's Filipino-Australian, and then me, the Singaporean. At this point of time, the pandemic had only hit Singapore.
Right.
So I was masked up. I am a proper kiasu Singaporean at the start of the pandemic already. Now I'm a little bit more just frustrated, and I'm like, can we get over this? I was masked up. I was heightened. Like when people sneeze, I would freak out, and it hadn't hit Australia until like much later in 2020, honestly, right? And so they were laughing at me. And they were judging me, and they said, of course it's the Singaporean that would be this extra, because at that time it wasn't even an endemic yet. It was just something that no, it was, what was it called? It was just like some virus going on in Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, and Taipei.
And China had
China,
a little
of course
bit.
China, of course China. A little bit of China, just a little bit. But yeah, and then what's funny now is when the full-blown pandemic hit Malaysia and India, I remember Navin and Joanne wrote to me and said, yeah, we should have listened to you.
So I'm going to pause there, your story, because I have to tell my mask story.
Oh, sure, go for it.
So Kyle and I, we had to travel to Tokyo. And this was in February 2020.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of starting. You didn't have to wear a mask in Singapore at this point. But we knew we were sort of had to go there, and I just didn't want to get sick. Do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't like terrified of it. It's just like I do not want the hassle of getting sick, and also like I didn't want to die, but it was more in my mindset. I don't want to get sick. So we were sort of traveling. It's like I'm going to get a mask. So we got masks, and we decided to travel with masks. And no one else had masks. And we were sort of at the airport, and, you know, like in Asian culture, some, especially in Japan as well, like they'll sometimes wear a mask, right? Yeah. Like it's way before the pandemic. And what we noticed when we were at the airport, that like we were creating a sense of panic and fear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was kind of like, obviously people knew about this thing. And then it was kind of like, if you do see people wearing masks, it's normally Asian people.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like two white dudes with masks.
Yeah.
Was just like, it was
Red
like,
flags.
fear was like rippling through the airport sort of thing. So yes, I understand your solo mask wearing sort of fare.
It was. I wish people listened to me. I remember in January when I told people, oh my god, there's this new virus spreading around China, and it had just hit Singapore. It was like 2 cases, 4 cases. I was so heightened. I wrote to my gym, I think we need sanitizers everywhere. I think people are still not... And this was when we had like 2 to 12 cases at that point of time. And the gym actually complied, and like they started putting posters, please take care of how you disperse the cough or sneeze and stuff like that. I remember my friend saying, yeah, but like it's only hitting 2%, you know, only 2% infected, yada yada yada. And I remember so many people coming up to me and say, I wish we listened to you now. I think if the world had just shut down sooner, I'm not saying shut down, but like quickly quarantined the borders that were affected, we won't be in the situation where we are now.
Maybe.
Long story short, listen to Hirzi. But it's true. Maybe. Who knows that this was not already...
Or maybe it was better that everyone just got it.
Yeah.
Because your immunity is stronger than it is to the vaccine. And
Correct.
That if you got the earlier variant, not as harsh, you would have very strong immunity.
But I guess like the sensitivity of it is also we are the people who are still alive and have not lost families from it. You know, there are people who have lost families. And it's sad to see how... To actually know someone who this virus has wiped out.
Yes, that's bad.
It's hard to announce like, yeah, it's better that we have COVID.
My friend, she's here. She's from Indonesia. Her dad woke up in the middle of the night, had real trouble breathing, collapsed. Mum helped him. He passed. An hour later, Mum passed, and the next week, her uncle passed.
This was in Singapore?
In Indonesia.
Oh,
yeah, it's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
Somber.
It's hard times. Yeah, and we're blessed that we're alive.
So you went to Australia, not to just move on, but you went to Australia, Sydney, Canberra.
Melbourne first.
Melbourne.
Sydney, Canberra.
Uh-huh. And
we just did a stand-up tour.
But was it good? Did you get to see much?
I'll be frank. I am still developing my tone with stand-up. So with a Singaporean audience, with a Malaysian audience, it's like second skin with me. I can punchlines roll out of my tongue a lot quicker because you're my culture. I can burst into Singlish and it's funny. Or my kind of style of joke is really, I don't give you the dish served. I give you the ingredients so that I'm not implicated in. Let's say it's a racial throat kind of joke. I'll give you the ingredients. You cook it yourself.
Okay.
So I'm never implicated in saying the punchline.
So you're very safe.
Not safe, but shady is my style of punchlines. I never give the punchline. I just give the build up, and then people get there quickly enough. So when you are from the same culture like Malaysia and Singapore, it's quicker. And with an Australian audience, I have to not say code switch, but I have to be super aware of not using Singlish. And I had to build rapport with the audience. So it was a little harder, a show in Australia. But by the fourth set, when I was, funny enough, our final set was in Canberra. By the fourth set, I was just nailing it.
Oh, so you worked out your
Not
process. Doing okay.
Yeah, I did a good job enough.
Someone laughed.
Yeah. 4. No, it was great. It was great.
No, but so it was a matter of you working out your process and your relationship with a different type of audience, because the audience before, you couldn't rely on Singlish, and for people who don't know, Singlish is kind of like patois.
Yeah, it is a patois. Good job.
It's like a patois, right? Yeah. But with a different accent.
Yeah.
And just that process of working out the audience, right? And how they're responding to you.
And also because, like, I like to research and write to perform. I don't just like to tell, and I should change this up a little bit about myself because I'm so rigid as a comic. It has to be political or social. Like, it's just, I like to do observational commentary. And at that point in time, I have not lived in Australia. I don't know enough nuances of Australia. But by the fourth day, the fact that I can then write a set to confidently make a bunch of Canberrans laugh. And you know, Canberrans don't laugh.
But there's not much to laugh about
There's
there.
no personality in Canberra.
It's where the politicians are, yet it's one of the only places you can buy fireworks. Fireworks are banned everywhere. You can buy fireworks
I didn't
there.
know that.
And pornography is far more legal or something. And
Should have shots off.
and I think like certain drugs are legalized as well,
Oh, yeah.
where all the politicians are. I don't
Ah.
know. So you changed your set along the way?
I built it up. So I had like a set as a Singaporean entering, of course there were like some, at that point in time, COVID jokes because I was the only Singaporean and Singapore was the only affected
Sorry, you joked about COVID.
Yeah, it was so funny.
I mean, like,
it was easy jabs of having a virus and being a Singaporean at the point. It was self-depreciating, if anything. But what was hard was trying to find Australian references, and it's so important for me. I'm a needy person. I need you to feel like you're involved in my set. I cannot just tell you my life story, which is something I need to learn to change about. So by the fourth set, which was in Canberra, I was able to make like jokes about the different demographics of Sydney and Melbourne. And yeah, it was a kind set. I would dare say, because the first two cities, I could tell I was navigating. I don't know if the audience could tell, but I hate it when I hate myself. I need therapy. I hate it when I can hear myself hating on me. Yeah, but the fourth set, I was like, okay, I feel like myself again.
okay, that's cool. But I think like if you're gonna go to a country, and I've never done stand up, and I'm not funny, so that would be really, that would be terrible shit. No, but like anything like where you're talking to people, right? And comedy, you need to understand those people, right? And the people you're talking to a certain extent.
People do it easy. Some people just tell them stories about their lives, which is good enough, honestly. And
If their life's funny.
Yeah. No, if you're a comic, the way you storytell is funny.
Yes.
And it is a lot in my ego, honestly, at that point of time, to see my artistry a specific way. And I don't have to. I just have to be funny and engaging. And there's two sides to Hirzi. You get this serious side of Hirzi, which is fascinating, mind-blowing conversations, I like to think.
Even if you do so yourself.
Thank you. Or funny Hirzi, who's crass and street and innuendos all the time. And I'm trying to find the right middle where I do very refined discussions with very simple punchlines. I mean, even the best of comedians are still navigating their voice. Like, not a lot of things translate out of Singlish isms.
No.
Yeah, not a lot. And I want to be able to travel with my comedy one day. And so I need to learn to start telling my stories versus writing for the audience. Because what is a Singaporean's opinion on Australian politics? You know? Who hasn't, and this Singaporean who has never lived there. So I need to be less precious with my purpose of my artistry when I'm outside of my safe zone. You know, my YouTube stuff, it's still going to maintain because it's kind of cool. But yeah.
So then the difference between like comedy, stand-up and filmed, right? Like, I mean, it's going to be very different to have that live feedback, right? Like you get to sort of see. I remember I was in LA and I came across I was listening to a podcast and the comedian was saying how he would try stuff out and pick a few people in the audience and just sort of feel their reactions. Right? So he's talking to the whole audience, but for some reason he might that person. And I felt like he kind of picked me because he kind of like he'd say a joke and he'd sort of do that.
Right.
And he'd sort of do it to a few other people sort of thing. And so I was sort of like conscious of this to a certain extent. And then I was like, I don't know, I think as an audience, and I haven't, it's not like a thing that I go to, but I just happen to go to it. I think as an audience, you kind of, if you're in a comedy audience, you get wrapped up in the other people laughing. That's why if you go to a TV recording, they'll always have warm-up comedians before it, right? To get people in a laughy mood.
Yeah.
So once like I registered that, like, I think he's using me as a feedback tool to test out his material. I was kind of like, he'd say something that I didn't find funny, so I'd just, like, I gave him honest feedback, so I'd just be like,
I see.
No reaction sort of thing. and I could see him sort of like taking it in sort of thing, so it was interesting.
It's a tango with the audience, I feel, stand up. It's so hard if you're a meticulous writer performer, meaning to say that you want to deliver the punchline how it is and then move on to the next segue and transition, which I was at the start of stand-up. I'm still navigating, I'll tell you honestly. But you can't, is what I'm learning with stand-up. You got to prepare to be thrown off and you are the steering captain of the ship. The thing is, you can go down when it tanks and bombs, or you can continue to sail the ship until the nearest landmass.
Well, you need to be adaptable as well.
You have to, and that was something that I had to learn a lot at the start of my stand-up attempts. But it's been fun. I think the pandemic has sort of put a little sabbatical on it for a while, and I'm not too eager to do a show. I feel like what I'm learning now is being patient with my craft. I cannot regurgitate craft after craft, video after video, just because people were so used to Hirzi a specific way. Hirzi was like, Hirzi, as in, I'm calling myself in third person. That's my Leo. But Hirzi was a specific artist, and his outputs were so consistent that I'm like, who am I fighting with? Why am I competing with and you should compete with yourself because it's fun. Right. But if you're competing with yourself and it's miserable, take a break, sayang. Who is putting this pressure on you but your fucking self? And so I'm taking a break from a lot of things until I've cooked nice enough dishes and serve it.
Well, a lot of people do that, like, you know, like going back to the pandemic, like I'd meet people who'd be, oh, you know, it's just so boring and this and that, or you know, I can't do this, or I feel really down. And like, it didn't affect me that much when we were going through the lockdowns and stuff like that. And to me, and I said it to a few people, it's like, but it only affects you if you allow it to. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can focus, that you can't do your weekend to Bali or something, or you can focus on, well, I see my family more, or I can have more time to myself. Yeah. You should never be doing anything that makes you miserable. Yeah. That's interesting. So the process of stand-up, how do you you're writing material? Are you practicing in front of the mirror at home? Are you practicing on friends?
Okay. Oof.
And it's new to you, right? Fairly new.
The first time I wrote stand-up was 2012. And it was
Okay.
for another artist. And for the longest time, I never performed my own writing work. And so when I finally did in 2017, it was actually Malaysia. And I said, I can do it. Just because it wasn't painful, but it was jaw clenching when you see people do your punchline and you say to yourself, "Oh, I would have done it a little bit more like that." I think that's funny. And then so you say, I'm not talking about CTK. CTK does my work justice. CTK is an actress who I write stand up for sometimes. I love her performance. But like, some other people who I had to write for, I'm just like, I would have done that differently. Anyways, not to be a shady bitch anymore. I then started doing it in 2017 onwards, and I found a flair. I just had to find my style. And I was trying so hard to be my favorites. And that was a mistake. I think just be yourself, and people find you need to be warm as a comedian. You cannot be a vibe.
But some are very stoic faced and cold.
Yeah, but it's because it's them.
Yes.
And I'm not that.
So maybe it's more that you need to be genuine to yourself.
Yes, definitely. I think that, or genuine to my voice. And what I realize is I'm funniest when I'm a shady bitch.
Right.
And my punchlines come naturally, and even if you throw me off, I can ping pong that situation very naturally. It's just who I am. So my favorite piece I've ever written was for the Singapore Bicentennial. So the National Arts Museum. What is it called?
National Arts Council?
No. The museum right next to the Padang. What is that called? It's not Asian Civilization Museum.
Asian Civilization Museum?
No. The one that is the old Supreme Court building now. What is it called? Well, for the Singapore Bicentennial, that museum approached me, okay? Please insert the...
I'm finding out for you. I'm finding out for you.
Please edit this out. They're not gonna.
There's no editing out. We edited out your toilet break, your comfort break.
We're going. I need to go to the toilet.
No, you're not going to the toilet.
What is it?
What is this? Here, you find it.
National something museum.
Sorry, you're saying this was your favorite piece you wrote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just clearly, I remember the museum. There's too many. The National Museum of Singapore. Duh, that's what I said. No, it's not.
It's not.
Oh no, please hire me.
It's this Asian Civilization Museum.
National Gallery. There you go. I knew it was something National Singapore. So the National Gallery of Singapore.
Yes.
And the reason why I confused it with NAC was because NAC was a huge part of the project as well. So for Singapore Bicentennial...
Don't backtrack. Carry on.
Don't pick on me. So for the Singapore Bicentennial, they said to me, "Hey Hirzi, we would like for you to be one of the sets." It's up on YouTube. You all can watch it. It's called the Singapore Founding Fathers
Too busy
Roast.
eating.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I want to order food now. I'm starving. They asked me, like, you are gonna perform. You're one of the comics, and it was just me and Kumar. If anyone knows, Kumar is the legend, the legacy, the queen of comedy in Singapore. It's so hard to come after or before Kumar. It is a massacre to yourself, basically.
Baptism of fire.
Yeah.
But that's good.
It's big shoes to fill, and you won't even be able to walk in them. So I had to be authentic to my voice. And what I am is also a conceptualized artist. I love concepts, right? So then I knew Kumar was going to do his iconic, social commentary on things. And I had to come up with a concept that was solid enough that would, if not match up to him, be my own little equal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided, what if I do a roast of Raffles?
Okay.
And the thing is, though, I eventually realized, no, you don't just roast one person, because in a roast, there are many other comics that you roast as well. What if I roast the founding fathers of Singapore? And that was my playground, that was my premise. It was my favorite thing I've ever written for a stand-up performance. It was so cute. Like, I even planned my entrance to walk in with God Save the Queen. And I had a punchline for that. I had a punchline for everything. And it was just so complete. It felt like my best stand-up set.
Like the full package, like it had everything it needed to have.
And that's when I realized, hey, did you get to be your shady bitch funny self? Yes, because you were roasting people. Did you get to be the conceptualized artist that you are? Yes. And were you proud of it? Yeah. You get to perform. I did some kind of like running around and performing to the music as well. And I like that. So I know now, okay, you are finding your footing. So that's good. I know how to navigate, at least I think for now. You never stop learning about yourself and your work.
But I think for something like stand-up, it must be like a process like that, because it's you can practice it like at home, but the audience is so key to it, right? Like they're your barometer or your measure. You kind of need the audience to practice.
The classic way of building material, as what I'm learning from a lot of comics, is that they do their open mics. So they test their materials on open mics, and then when they have their final show that they do record or do charge stage tickets for, it's like the best of punchlines. Again, at that point in time, my ego always wanted fresh material anytime I perform. I don't want to repeat a joke, because that's one of my faux pas when I watch one of my favorite comics. When I watch you a second time and a third time and I hear a joke from before, I get not disappointed or frustrated. I don't get excited again. And I don't want people to stop getting excited. I want Hirzi to continuously come up with material that's fresh.
But it's an act. Stand-up's an act, right?
It
is. Like people will do tours, right? You can't do like
correct.
London, New York, Paris, and do a different all the time.
See,
or New York, California,
But tours are different audiences, and you don't typically record the material and post them until the whole tour is over. So it's always fresh ears and fresh eyes watching your set. I don't want a repeat, especially something like Singapore, where you do like a couple of shows and you do a couple of open mics and your audiences come for all of them.
So they have open mics here?
Did you?
Do they?
I mean, pre-pandemic it was a lot more apparent. But again, this is just what I understand is my ego at the point of time. Will I change? I don't know. Maybe I will continue to write fresh materials every set or every show, which I want to. Or maybe I'll be able to be okay with it a little bit.
Isn't it like you give the show like a name? I'm just thinking of you because you're going to be very, very busy if you're like doing a new one each time, right? So you're just sort of like, you give the show a name, and then people know I'm going to see that show.
Yeah. So I have decided in this 2 years of pandemic, just recently actually, it's not that it's a decision, but I have a suggestion for myself. I have notes for myself. I do a lot of things that I'm passionate about, and they're all different things. And as an artist, I don't make money from them. I just love to do it. Just stupid. And I need to earn money in a year. So I've listed 4 types of projects in a year that I'll do. And every year, I'm just going to hit it 1 quarter each year.
Okay.
So Project A, for example, is a music parody on social commentary or the culture as I talk about it. There'll be 1 quarter of the year. A red carpet styling. There'll be another quarter of the year. Because I love to tell stories through my red carpet styling. It's just... I recently did one for Munah, and it told a story of early film starlets, and she embodied 3 different starlets through different 3 heritage fabrics. It was really fun for me. The next thing I like to do is a stand-up live show. And what was the 4th one? I can't remember now in the back of my head. But basically, every quarter of the year, I'll have a passion project that I will do. And there's no pressure for me to always feel I need to do another show another show. Because I would have done my favorite body of work once a year.
That makes sense.
And for the rest of the year, I better be earning money.
Yeah, but you have to, right? You need to eat. Otherwise, nuzzy without the kangkang's not so good, right? So you're going to be like, you're just, you have You set yourself 4 things that you will guarantee do for yourself that you enjoy, and they're interspersed by other paid work that gets food on the table. And some of those are enjoyable, and some of them have like a client that you've got to sort of be a certain way, and that's life.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Until like you're super rich and famous, you can do whatever you want.
Fuck I want.
Yeah.
So that's something I think I'm gonna try in 2022.
To be super famous and rich and do whatever the fuck you want.
No, to be okay with my relationship with my art, and then make sure I have a substantial amount of work that doesn't compromise my
You kind of
living.
have to, right? Like as an artist in the modern world.
See, some artists don't care. Some artists just want to make money. Some artists say if this doesn't make me money, I don't want to do it.
But it is, right? Like you can be good at something. It depends on your personal circumstance. Like if you're from a very rich family, for example, then maybe you're not in a situation where you must earn money to maintain your life, right?
Yeah. True.
And
then there are artists like me who think it's important to constantly drop bodies of work that gives him life. It gives me a purpose, you know. It really does. Like when I do things that I feel passionate about, I feel alive. Like I did the styling thing for Munah. She gave me a budget. I spent all of it on the styling. I took nothing for myself. But it made me feel alive. To tell a story, to represent a community, to be able to be creative is so much better than where I was earlier this year. I was appreciative of a pulse, and that's just from being creative.
But that's probably like what Ed felt when he said like, yeah, okay, like I'll do your thing, right? Like you have people that you gel with and just things that you're into that, you know, you donate your time, for example, to a certain extent,
If only society in Singapore appreciates artistry on its diverse sense. I think Singapore thinks they appreciate art. But there is an elite group of people and a style of artistry that the stakeholders only want to support. That presents Singapore in a specific image. Even in fashion, in filmmaking, I think the more indie, avant-garde, less than finesse. I say less than finesse, but then when you see my videos on YouTube, you're like, how is that less than? But I would say I'm crass art. You know, the things I do borders cringe because you have to get uncomfortable with watching my stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. It depends on the viewer, right? Like what makes viewer A and viewer B uncomfortable could be 2 different things.
But not many people want to park money on that kind of art.
No.
And so, if only artists have access where all they do is serve their life purpose of continuing to make art, and they don't have to worry about eating or rent, then it will be a vibrant city because we have so many beautiful artists. Drag performers, for example, if they have the support that Western drag artists have, oh my god, the thriving community it would birth.
With Singapore, for some reason, is like, as a society and as a result of the education system, I guess, as well, like the what they value is different to some other countries. Do you know what I mean? Like we were just talking about, you know, all these other islands that are so close. Like, you know, you go to like, you know, like Bali, for example, and the people are so artisanal. Do you know what I mean? Like they can fix something with anything, and they can make something beautiful out of like a piece of wood. Like the level of craftsmanship's amazing, but you don't have that here. You know, like if I go to Japan, like a very modern society with ancient tradition, modern and ancient society as well, but like what people would consider advanced. You know, big tall buildings, technology. You've still got like people who are artisans, like hand making like beautiful knives and stuff like that. That I don't know, that doesn't seem to be valued here, like the arts and the crafts. It's more like the maths and science types of things and technology types of things, which to me they can only go so far. Do you know what I mean? Like as a country and an economy, because the economy is obviously very important to Singapore. All the maths and stuff that is taught is basically like memory test.
Yeah.
It's just like what you can remember. But, you know, like if they're trying to get to a certain point in technology or industry, like there needs to be that creativity, because someone needs to think of something amazing that's going to change, disrupt, you know, how people sort of say that.
The stakeholders that are in charge of budgets and financing, or even people with the budgets that do support the art, want to support artists that have a certain level of refined representation. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but like it's these artists that always gets easy access to those budgets.
With a certain mold.
Yeah. And most times these guys do clean work. They don't talk about politics. If they talk about Singapore as a society, it is often fun or like, oh, that's a fun viewing. I have no issues giving this example. For example, like Jack Neo. I don't know where he gets his funding and budgets from, but he gets them. And he always portrays Singapore lighthearted, comedic. Great. But I think there is value in the edgiest stuff like drag and my parody. So out there, if there are any funders and VCs, I'm available at said link, or you just find me on Instagram. But yeah, I feel like if we have access to it, it would be an even, and we shouldn't have a problem with art having a different opinion from the statement pieces that the government want up.
But it's going to be then one of two things, right? It's driven by what government and industry want, or maybe it's governed by what the people need.
What do
Maybe,
the people need, though?
I don't know. Maybe people are living a life that they respond better to like happy, cheery stuff rather than the stuff that causes self-reflection. I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm just putting it out there.
I think the funny thing for me as a comic is because of my collaboration work, I dare to say I have a range which not a lot of people can. Based on my collaborators, I'm able to adapt my tone, my sassiness according to the partners I'm with. So for example, if we look at Munah and Hirzi, where we were young and crass and don't care, it was very edgy stuff that we put out there, especially coming from a Malay community. It's just like, whoa, we've not seen and witnessed this before. And then I've also worked with Benjamin King, where we are two cisgendered males, so our voices were always, we were careful of having to represent our statement pieces, our artful pieces disrespectfully. Like, we didn't want to disrespect people outside of our privilege as cisgendered males, right? And those were fun, safe pieces. So, and me on my own, I don't give a flippin' fuck. I just go for the moon and back with whatever I want to do. And so having a range is something that I should not even have to explain to people about. Like, they should see Hirzi and say, oh, we can tweak. Not that we can tweak.
No, you will adapt.
Yeah. And I can adapt to how you want it to be. I'm not always edgy. Do I produce edgy stuff? Yes. But all I'm saying is I know my DNA now. And as long as you let me have my punchlines, I'll respect it. I'll respect the premise you set for me. Yeah. I mean, it's best if you don't, because then you'd be cool.
So which one's more fun? The bit that you just get to do you and whatever you want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if there is a sugar daddy out there that says, Hirzi, every year, this is the budget for you to do your art, I'll be like, sure, what do you want for dinner?
There you go.
Yeah.
To any sugar daddies out there.
To any sugar daddies out there, what do you want for dinner? For the price of XXX per annum, I'm able to ask you what you want for dinner.
Not including expenses.
Yeah, I'll buy dinner though. I'm not gonna cook it. Kyle, is this person you?
Could be.
So that's like cool. It's good to sort of, I don't know. I think it's interesting here in Singapore because like I work in a creative industry, and the creative industry I'm in, I think, takes itself too seriously and overcomplicates it, which is advertising. But it's interesting to hear you and the stuff that you go through to get, I don't know, earn a living ultimately. Like, I have to be a certain way and think of certain things in my industry, right? And it's not necessarily what I want to naturally do or what sort of entertains me.
Yeah.
But I do really see this thing here that creativity it's not valued. And like, I've heard this thing where the government want people to teach kids how to be creative. Like, and that in itself is like, oh, but you don't get it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like every kid is born creative. It just depends on, like, like a kid can learn a language so quickly and work out how to speak, how to get from A to B so quickly. It's like it's the schooling system, it's the parents, it's the environment you're in that crushes the creativity out of you, and ultimately you end up with what's left. Like my sister, her child, she sent me some drawings that he's been doing. They're insanely creative.
Oh yeah.
Like they're amazing. Like there's he's like 9. Like they're. I'll show you after. They're
Show me now. What's the
full
pressure?
And
then we'll poll the audience if they think it's true.
No,
or
but
if he has confirmation bias.
then he has to edit it in, so he won't be happy with that. But it, like he's got like these like obscure cartoony sort of characters, but like they've got like devilish horns, and there's some
very
imaginative. It's extremely imaginative. Like there's like alien references and spaceships and maybe it's just a mishmash of the cartoons he's been watching. I don't know. You don't know what's going through his thought process. But I was asked to go to a university and speak to some children, not on stage. There was like tables set out and the teacher or whatever lecturer, is that what they call them? I don't know. I didn't go to uni. Said, go stand over on that one. And there were other advertising people there. And these students sort of would come past and they'd ask you questions. And they asked me the same questions. Like, and after they were saying, oh, what's your greatest achievement? I'm like, that's a shit question.
That's
I didn't
a
tell
valid
them that.
question.
It's a shit question.
Why?
Well,
People are interested in you.
I don't think they were. I think that they just felt that they had to ask something.
What would have been an interesting question?
An interesting question might have been like learning a little bit more about what you do and understanding, and then okay, well, how do you come up with ideas like that, or how do you get from here to A to B?
Maybe that was the follow-up.
But there was no follow-up. So like they would ask me that, and they would ask the other people at the table that, and I said honestly, like my greatest achievement was I had a good job. I quit it to go traveling. And I got on a plane and I flew from Sydney to Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah.
I got a bus to Seremban, a bus to Johor Bahru. Like, this is in 1998. So there was like monitor lizards in the street. And then a bus and then a bus with lots of chickens on it to Mersing.
Yeah.
And then a boat to Tiamen, and I travelled for 18 hours, and then I found a place to stay.
Yeah.
And they all looked at me like I was an idiot, like all these kids. And sorry, this phone's going mental. Hang on, I'll do that. And they all looked at me like I was an idiot, and I was like, but you're asking me what my greatest achievement was. That literally was. That made me feel
and this
like
was
I
all
really
during
did
the
something.
war.
Yeah, during the war. But and then so they would sort of then around the 5th same question, I said, guys, like, I'm really worried about you all.
You said that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I said, I'm really worried about you all. You're all asking the same question. So you're being all educated in the same school. You're learning the same textbooks, but you're being conditioned in such a way that now you have a freedom.
Yeah.
And you're asking the same questions.
How would they ask the same question after a person asked the same question?
Well, because they'd float by and move on to other tables. So at this point,
it's not like a lecture hall.
No.
Okay.
Like it was like a
idiot
meet
students.
and greet.
Pay attention. He answered that already.
Right, but no, but they couldn't hear it. The next student couldn't
Okay,
hear it,
I
right?
get you now.
So then a group of 4 came over and they asked the same thing. I was like, I'm really, really worried. Like, and I said this, like, you're reading the same things. Like, what's going to make you different from the other person? Like, you're just carbon copies of each other. Like, how are you going to be when you go to get work?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they were like, oh, I was like you need to have experience that's different. It's like you need to, like, I don't know, like, leave your phone at home and make your way to Bangkok and come back, or challenge yourself. And I was like, why do you want to do what you want to do? What are you studying to be? He goes, a copywriter. I was like, why do you want to do that? He said, oh, because I'm creative. And it's like, okay, but like I said, the thing is, most of the people in advertising, they don't want to do it. Like most copywriters want to write like a book. Do you know what I mean? Most art directors, I don't know, they want to be a director, a film director or something. I was like, and I said, basically, you're going to go into advertising. After 5 years, you're going to fucking hate it. You're going to be frustrated and you're going to be stuck in this machine, and, you know, you're going to want to break free because you're trying to write your book. And I said, but you're in a unique position now, right? Like, and he looked really worried. He's like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? And I was like, I was like, tell me. I said, this big circle table we were on. I said, like, see this glass?
Fucking losers, yeah, boy. What school is this?
I said, this is, I can't remember. I said, this is advertising and this table's creativity. I was like, you need to learn how to play out here and don't go straight in here.
So to whoever asked that question to Paul, please know we're thinking that you're a total loser. Right?
No, I was just saying, like start writing your book or whatever it is you really want to do now, because maybe you don't even need to go into the glass and you can just play on the table.
To his defense, I think being a Singaporean, I assume.
Yeah, he was.
Being a Singaporean student, I think you don't even know what you want to do it as old as 23. You know. I think...
No, who does though, right?
Yeah, and I think I am lucky to have enough confidence to explore my self-creativity. Nobody told me to do whatever I did on YouTube. I just did it. Things I do with Munah, things I do with Ben. Nobody told us to do a specific format. We just did it. And I feel like what is a cultural norm is to wait to be told what is the assignment here, and then people get creative based off the assignment. What if people just start doing whatever the fuck they want to do because they like it?
But that is what helps breed creativity. So I think, like, the very harsh laws in Singapore, whilst they serve a good purpose in some ways, they're reducing creativity, which is, I believe, important in other ways. So for example, like in Australia or UK or something, an artistic kid might go out and do some graffiti, right? Like, and it's an outlet of creativity. You're breaking the law and you shouldn't do it, right? But if they get caught, the punishment is not so severe. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's enough to hopefully deter them or make them think, oh, you know, maybe I'll do it in a better place. And but at the same time, them doing that, it's adults that are trying to catch them, and they need to be creative to not get caught. And they're competing with adults at a young age, where that little bit of mischief, it doesn't really exist here.
I think art is so mischief. Look at my art, right? But there are exciting ways to navigate that. I mean, let's be frank. If right now I just started painting your wall, you're gonna kill the shit out of me, because that would be your deposit money, right?
Depends if it's good or not.
And who's to say what I think is good is what you think is good?
Art is objective.
Art is objective as well. And I think graffiti is such an interesting example. But art is mischief, and art should continue to be mischief. If I can give an example of art that happened in Singapore that was exciting and mischievous, was Priya Gita Dia. Priya Gita Dia is this... I believe her art involved her association with color gold. I think the first time she did it, she said how she was always racially troped into being associated with gold as an Indian girl. So she she used gold flakes, I believe, to foil the steps of an HDB apartment. And so this was like a public housing area, and it was just suddenly a flight of steps that was gold. And neighbors started taking photos of it. No one was complaining. People were just pleasantly surprised. Was it mischief? Yes. Did she get into huge trouble? No. She explained herself why she wanted to do it. Very artist of her, actually, when she did it. And I don't know if she got into big trouble, but that was her first body of work to cement her as the girl who does gold things. And now she does gold pieces of exhibits all around different campaigns.
But that's really cool. That's what I mean. Like, but that little bit of mischief, right? Like, it's there's an outlet there, right? And yeah, she had to be a bit sneaky not to get caught. And once again, the people trying to catch her is adults. So as a younger person, you're competing with adults earlier.
I say my best advice to young artists out there is to do exactly what I and Priya Gita do. Nobody told us to do it. We just did it. And then when we've done it, say sorry, learn from it, and navigate the mischief another way for your next big drop. Nobody told Munah and Hirzi to not do to do pranks or not do pranks on the streets of Singapore. We did it anyways. And eventually when they had a problem with it, we did something else. There was more mischief, social commentary videos. And then after that, we did parodies. You know, my advice to the young creative artists out there right now, don't stop yourself. Don't get into trouble. You know, like, know exactly what is black and white law, but fun mischief that you can afford.
Find the grey.
Yeah, find the grey and then gold it up.
There you go. So then, going back to, like, you know, shamanism and stuff like that.
That's a random segue.
It is.
So, going back to shamanism.
No, because it's something that, like, you and I spoke about not we touched on things here like ethnicity, and it's something that I wanted to definitely cover today.
Yeah.
And I'm just aware is probably going. I don't know how long are we doing now? Probably nearly 2 hours. Yeah. So we don't want to bore everyone too much.
But you need to tell me when to shut up.
But because this was something that I definitely want to talk about. So it's something you sort of discovered and shamanism and I guess like you becoming comfortable with the balance of that side of things and Islam as well, your relationship with God, right?
Yeah. So I think the context, and I need to give a disclaimer, is that I am not a shaman.
Oh, really?
I think just from the introduction, people are gonna assume
can we cut?
I'm a shaman.
I thought.
Can we cut and retake? So I am not a shaman.
No, but like you're interested in these practices. And, right.
I've opened myself up to the world of spirituality.
Yes.
And ancient Malay or Nusantara shamanistic practices and the universal spiritual shamanistic practices as well. I mean, Palo Santo is not Malay, but you know, it's something that I have.
It's sacred in a way to some people.
Yeah. So what I'm learning was what I thought was a discovery, and then now that I turn back into my timeline and I see all bodies of work of mine, I realize it was always a part of me. Because now I say, oh my god, I did that then, and then I did this piece of work then, and then it talked about this then, and like it just feels like I've been trekking through a forest only to finally push through a bush and say, that's my highway. I've always I found it. Like this was all mine. That was a horrible analogy, by the way, but we're gonna go with that. And so in 2020, when the pandemic hit and I was faced with an existential crisis, I was on a date, and this anecdote on that date is something that is so profound. I understood what happened to me in 2020. The person said, this pandemic, what it does is makes you look into a mirror. It places a mirror in front of you. And the question to ask yourself is, why are you so uncomfortable? What about it is so painful? And then it just hit me like, oh. Because my usual coping mechanisms like work and travel was stripped away from me, and I had to deal with myself. The things I hated about myself amplified its voice even more because there were no distractions from it then. And through it, I found a sites I mean, not a segue, but like through it I found spirituality in a way that was almost accidental, but if you look on hindsight now, it was as if some divine energy guided me that way. And the way I introduced myself to it was also something that, because being that, ironically, that Muslim boy who was always questioning pluralism and everything, it's so funny that we started with that, and now it shows that I was actually one of the people who was nervous. I introduced myself while holding tightly to my knowledge of Islam, to my understanding of Islam, to my intention with Islam, and to my relationship with the God of Islam. And that's why I'm comfortable. Because in Islam, they believe in this thing called qada and qadar, which means, in the shortest explanation of it, you believe in predestined outcomes. Things happen for a reason. Things have been written for you already.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that anything I encounter now, whether right now in this moment is good, and then in the future I find it bad, it's been willed.
Mm-hmm.
God has willed for me to experience this version of spiritual Islam a specific way. I think Islam has been taught to us the way the Singapore government has been teaching creativity. It's so funny, we're tying everything together. Has been teaching creativity or just education to the young masses. There is a regiment, there is a ritual, there's a fundamental, there are the pillars of Islam, and there's nothing wrong with that. Please don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think what it doesn't emphasize enough is your own personal spiritual connection with God. I've felt more connected with the God of Islam, with my own relationship, the way I practice it now. I talk to him more than 5 times a day.
Yeah.
I don't have to wait to be on a prayer mat to talk to him. I have such a fond relationship with my God, my maker, my universal, omnipresent God that answers to everyone's prayer, whether you're Muslim or not, in my opinion. Blasphemous as it sounds. But I manage to find a sweet spot in the middle. Because I say, hey, the things that people tell me I'm wrong about is everything that I am. And who created this boy is God himself. As cliche as it sounds, I don't think he makes mistakes. And I must make sense. So now, this era of my life is me making sense, not to anyone in the world, but myself.
Well, you're born like a lump of clay, right?
And funny, that's actually an anecdote in the Quran.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then life and like God, if you believe in God, right, shapes you, right, and you end up a beautiful vase or like a bucket. Or
Why did you point to me and say bucket?
I'm joking. But you know what I mean, like
beautiful boy.
Vase.
Say it. I'm a beautiful boy.
There you go, a beautiful boy, made of clay. There you go. I wholeheartedly agree. But do you know what I mean? So it's these things that shape, right?
Yes.
And sort of shape you who you are. So then so you said like you're sort of forced to look in the mirror. What things didn't you like then? When you looked in that mirror?
I didn't like how I haven't accepted the truth. Or even if I did, how nuanced my acceptance of it is. I didn't like how I'm pained with my existence, and that I'm trying to protect everyone else from this pain but myself. It sounds selfless, but frankly selfish now that I'm feeling it. At the same time, I don't blame myself for it because this is my life's story. I don't like how I abused my body in exchange for a distraction of the pain.
In what way?
I would drown myself with work. I would have 2 hours of sleep a day and be fine with it. I would work non-stop for like 8 weeks to 12 weeks on ends, and then once it ends, go and travel for 2 months, come back to the same routine. I almost had a stroke scare in 2019 as well, and all these because I was pained by something in my life, didn't want to deal with it, so occupied myself another way. And the most beautiful thing about the 2020s, as painful as it is, it's the most beautiful thing. Because now through anything good or bad, I am at ease and at peace with anything that happens to me, because I will always now look for meaning. If something bad happened to me, if something tragic or heartbreaking happens to me, I look fondly at that experience and ask myself, what's the meaning behind this?
Mm.
Once you associate meaning with... Nowadays, when I wish people, though, I will say, I hope you have a meaningful something. Because you can't predict if someone's going to have something good or bad. What is good or bad? It's so subjective. But you can always hope that they find the meaning behind it.
Good today might be bad later, right? Or vice
Well, what's
versa. It's
meaningful?
like when I like have 4 Magnums in a row. It
Ice
feels...
creams?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought the condoms. Sorry.
No, just the ice cream. But you know, like it feels so good at the time, and then like 3 hours later, I'm like sat on the couch, like.
That hurts my butt.
I'm not lactose intolerant, but
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
it's too much sugar and too much ice cream
Si,
for one
senor.
person.
Si, senor.
So then, within this spirituality, is it like, has it been a journey? Like a solo journey, or have you sort of done like ceremony with other people or anything like that?
So magical. Something leads me to something that has nothing to do with the previous thing, leads me to another thing, leads me to another thing, and it all links up and makes sense.
Right.
That was a huge part of my 2020. 2020, the theme for that year was to identify my ego. Now that we're at the end of 2021, the theme of the year, I'm realizing now, is to champion the voice. In trying to hush my ego, what I've done this year, that was what I found the meaning of, is I've silenced myself. And I need to realize that you can be humble without your ego, without having to be silenced in your existence. And so the first year I call it the year of the warrior, which is so funny because that was my red carpet look. And then this year I call it the year of the goddess. I like to associate it with goddess because I assume if we all are our own gods and goddess or deities, people come to us in our temple with worships. They give us offerings, right? And they see that it's tangible things. And you realize, oh my god, this person's giving me offerings. I must do something in return. But what you give in return are your bliss, your blessings, and your answered prayers for them. And I'm not saying to anyone, but that's just to your whole life experience. When you honor the power that you are, you don't have to forever realize, oh my god, someone's giving me something tangible. I must always feel like I owe it to them. I must always feel like I owe it to this experience. You don't have to. You are your own power and your temple of worship. Whoever comes, whoever is offering you, is lucky enough to be getting your bliss, blessings, and answered prayers. Don't ever doubt yourself.
Yeah.
And your power.
I think I don't know, for me myself, like someone asked me about, I think 4 years ago, they said, oh, Paul, are you spiritual? And I was like, no. And then I was like, well, what do you mean? Because I kind of just associated that with religion. So I sort of, you know, like I don't have religion, right? Like I'm more someone who just thinks like the universe is just kind of it, and it all just works together, and I'm like a little thing within it, and like you sort of saying, everything happens for a reason, and that was kind of my way, or religion as such, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, oh, what do you mean by spiritual? You know, I was like, I don't have religion. He goes, no, you can be spiritual without religion, and he sort of explained it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, well, then I guess I am, sort of thing. And before I kind of sort of saw spirituality as like either yes religion or like a bit like hippie.
Yeah.
And
which we are.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I look at hippie, that's just like an appreciation of nature to a certain extent.
They
or
are,
a respect for nature. So then he sort of explained a little bit, and I start to like, oh, okay, so maybe I am spiritual. Like I already am, perhaps. And then another friend, she definitely is like spiritual, and I started to sort of understand it more. And she is a bit hippie, right? And she was doing a cacao ceremony.
Oh,
and this is why I ask if you did sort of, has it been solo or with other people? So and the cacao ceremony was on my birthday. So she goes, "Oh, Paul, you should come." So I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll come down." So I went down, and there was a room about 20 people, and she was like holding the ceremony with this other girl, and sit in a circle, never met anyone, and there's certain things they were sort of doing, and they were playing instruments, and like it honestly, like it took me like 10 or 15 minutes where I just had to like just get into it sort of thing, because at first it was a bit like I was uncomfortable, and I was probably like holding back, and there was ego there as well. Like
Perfect. I was gonna say that.
Me, right?
That was your ego stopping,
right? And I could see that in other people, and I could see that other people were kind of like just instantly into it, and maybe they'd experienced it before. I'm not sure. And anyway, like we had to sing songs and stuff like this, and I just like let go and got into it, and then we sort of like drank the cacao, and cacao is supposed to open your heart, right? And you do various things. There was you wrote she told me to write an intention on a piece of paper. Like I didn't even really know what an intention was. It was like, and she said, Paul, like I think you need
So intention, according to Webster's dictionary.
No, but like do you know what I mean, in its true essence, and in this situation. And she said, Paul, I think you need abundance. And I was like, but that just feels greedy. And she's like, no, you don't understand what abundance sort of is in this sense. It's more like not so much asking, but accepting good things. So I wrote down abundance. I was like, okay, that sounds like nice. And then, so there were several things that happened in this ceremony, right? Like, the first thing that happened that I found quite amazing really was, at one point you sort of turn to the person next to you, and you just like stare into each other's eyes, right? And the girl that was sort of holding the ceremony, Amanda, and I hope to get her on here, she would say like, stare in this person's eyes, like, and understand that this person, like, has felt love, like you felt love. They've felt happiness, and they've felt sadness. They've experienced death, and you stare into this person's eyes for about like 8 or 9 minutes, or 10, maybe 10. Sorry, and just stare into their eyes, and it was like so beautiful, like, and it was such a connection, and like I could like see she started to cry, and like I could feel like strong emotion, like mine and hers, and then like after they say, oh, talk to the person now, sort of thing, and she said, oh, what did you what did you see? And I was like, I saw that you're somebody who on the outside's really happy, and you're popular with your friends, and maybe you're the life of the party, but deep inside there's something that troubles you deeply. Like, and I didn't know if I should say that,
but you did anyways.
Yeah, which might have been a bit shitty person. But she reached forward and held my hand, and she said, like that's exactly who I am, like, and I was like, I don't know whether it was good for me to say it or not, but like I just felt close to her after it. Like, whilst we were staring, I wanted to hug her. I didn't, because that might have seemed a bit weird. But like after that, she hugged me, sort of thing. So I don't know. Yeah. It was really amazing. And
it would have been beautiful if you hugged on the spot.
I don't know, but it might have been creepy as well.
So I believe in higher selves. Your higher self was screaming in that moment to hug you, because her higher self was already accepting that hug.
Maybe.
So that's your intuition. Remember, your ego stopped you from joining in at the first 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Your intuition is your voice of instinct. And your intuition, in my opinion, or at least what I believe in, our higher selves are forever communicating with each other.
Yes.
So even if you choose to not talk to me because you're upset one day, your higher self is already communicating with my higher self, and so that's why you have an inclination or perception of
or
what's
we pick
happening.
up on a vibe of somebody.
The vibrations are our energies, and so in that moment, if you hugged her, what would have happened is she feels a soul connection for that moment. It doesn't matter because you didn't do it, and eventually she hugged you, which meant that she wanted it as well. But if you did, that connection in that moment was going to be electric.
Yeah.
And it's fine that you didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, the next time your intuition says do something, you need to discern it from impulse lah.
Well, you're gonna love this next bit then.
Okay, carry on, sir.
So this is going to be a long story because it affected me and I think it was amazing anyway. Because I did another ceremony, so maybe I learned from that. So at the end of this ceremony, they put down these cards, and they said, go and pick your card, right? So I went down and they were all laid out, and other people picked cards, and I kind of like went like this over them, and just it felt like that card, and I picked it up, and it was my intention,
Oh,
right? So I was
abundance.
Kinda, it was kind of like, oh, that's really cool. Went home and I felt changed by it. So the next time she had one, I went and did it, and they run through the same ways, right? So this time in the
Was it a full moon?
I don't know.
It must have been.
I can ask her.
Yeah.
This time in the staring session, and I loved it. I was looking forward to the staring session, and I couldn't wait to.
I can't. I really won't want to.
and I couldn't wait to pick my cards too. So as soon as we sat down, I was kind of like from afar. Everyone's in a circle, and it's like I've been here before. I know what's up. Like, and I'm looking at my cards, and those two cards are my cards. And I wrote down health and abundance. I liked abundance, so I already knew I'd pick that card. And then in the staring time, there was another girl, and we got to staring, and it looked like she wanted to cry, and then she couldn't, but like I felt really emotional, so like I kind of like I cried, like, and I felt like I did it a little bit on purpose, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without emotion, right? But it was like I wanted to let her know that it was okay for her to cry, and then she just started crying loads.
Yeah.
And she like looked at me and she said, "Thank you."
Oh.
And it was like, it was the hug without the hug.
Yeah. A release.
Then I picked my cards. I pulled out health because I wrote 2 intentions, and I pulled out health. And then after it, I was cleaning up, helping them. And then I put all the cards out and I went like this. And I pulled that one out, and it was abundance, my 2 intentions. Yeah. I loved it. It was amazing.
Yeah, spirituality is when you give it a shot, it's so hard not to believe in it. Jay-Z believes in it. He said it in a song. I told my wife, Alhamdulillah. He said it like that. This spiritual thing is real. He said it in a song. And more so, you see artists like Ariana, she's into it. Lil Nas is into it. SZA. And people are talking about manifestations like it's textbook now. I don't know how else to continue from it, but like I've been so thankful for it because of my relationship, not just with God, but the relationship I have with myself now. I'm kind to myself now. I give myself room for mistakes and growth now. I still sometimes react on impulse and ego, but I catch myself. I have no qualms apologizing now for what I've done.
You like self-correct yourself, like, and have
and
a
I don't
greater
think it's
awareness.
Self-correct. There's no correct. There's just growth. And like nowadays, I can even be okay with retracting. So something I've said now, and 5 minutes later, I think I changed my mind, and then 10 minutes later, I want to go back to the root of it. I'm okay with it because I'm just a human being navigating my emotions through things and my energies through things. And energy is real. So one of the things that was a challenge for me with it was how my friends started making fun of me. They say like, oh, you're like one of those uncles who are like, into scamming people with stones and gemstones and stuff like that. And I think even like a very conservative fundamental Muslim, not fundamentals, right? A very conservative, simple, everyday Muslim, when they hear things like meditate, they get so offended by it. They think it's blasphemous.
But you're meditating when you're praying, no?
That's what they don't realize. And I always give this anecdote. I said, when Muhammad met the angel, he was meditating in a cave. So if it allowed him ascension on that level, why is it wrong just because we're taught Islam a specific way after a while now? People forget that Islam is actually a very spiritual religion. The Sufism aspect
I was gonna say the Sufis
of Islam, it's more connected, I feel, and it doesn't become a regiment, it becomes a connection, and if not with God, with your sense of self. I think if more people are spiritual, more people would be lighter with the concept of finality, with the concept of death, and with the concept of choosing life. I was such a depressed motherfucker, but nowadays I'm so happy to choose life. I wake up and feel a pulse and I'm grateful. If people just give spirituality a shot, and you don't have to lose your religion for it, you can just make sense of it all.
I think it's just also being aware of it. Like I think like now, like our lives are so modern and there's so much noise. Like, you know, this is our period of time as we know it, and the technology we know is a blip. Do you know what I mean? Like in you know, we talk about the ancients, right? It's like we were evolved to be in touch with nature. We were evolved to you know, think in a certain way, or you know, like we were evolved in tribes, and there were shamans. Do you know what I mean? And they were sort of like looked up to, and they held knowledge, and and now people sort of see, you know, hear the word shaman or something like that,
like,
and
oh, you're dated.
Yeah, or they think that you're crazy, or you're a hippie or
worse.
whatever, you know, like, and it's kind of. I feel like humans have an ability, like you talk about, what did you say, that higher
Ascension?
No, I think you
Higher
said,
self.
Yeah, your higher self. Like I think like it's almost like we have like invisible antennas that are communicating, and we're now not in tune with them. Where before we were, right? Like
maybe it was a more evolved technology.
Right, but like for sure. Like so when that pyramid in Indonesia was actually built, that they haven't uncovered, like there would have been different tribes in the area, right? Like so you rock up through the jungle and see another tribe, you need to assess if that dude's friendly or not pretty quickly. Like that's, besides posture and the way they're moving, there's a level of higher self that
communicates.
Right.
So funny. I think the knowledge of what people assume is technology now and the age of information is limiting. We think technology is tangible products or science or electronics that we can see, we can have barometers of, measures. I said this in a tweet once, and then it shut all my non-sayer friends. I say, what is science but magic once upon a time that finally found a proof? And so the things that our ancient practices used to believe in, what if they were evolved technology that didn't need equipment and technologies to measure? What if telepathy is a technology? You know how I'll bring back to the Australian example of that time vault that they're trying to keep?
Yeah.
What if these information we have today, they don't have access in the timeline, and they think whatever we do now is bizarre, things with iPhones and equipment, and like they think like, oh, that's a stupid bizarre thing. What if technology is as simple as energy exchanges that you can sort of tune into? So it was actually documented in the films. There are some skill sets in ancient Malay shamanism that was a practice in the past, and one of it is called bicara batin. Bicara means communicate, batin means internal. So basically, the princess of Putri Gunung Ledang, she's a princess, could communicate with her Javanese brother, not via phones, but just through telepathy. The idea that two higher selves were communicating because they have the excess of that knowledge. I'm not saying it's real or
twins
it's
have
fake.
that. Twins speak of that all the time.
Correct. So what if that is also considered technology that now have been silenced or just not practiced, therefore not known on how to exploit, not exploit, but like, basically make use of these things, energetic exchanges, your chakras. Just because we don't see them or there's not enough research on them, why can't we call it science? Everything around us is.
But these are all ancient practices and ancient things, right? Like it's not, it's just not accepted by modern research.
Yeah, because it's woohoo. I mean, I made a meme one. It's so funny. It's of the Putri, And then the princess who could do the telepathy, and then she says, "You guys speak on stones now. Y'all forget that we can communicate with just telepathy." And I think it's funny, but because we haven't been able to prove it yet, or like nobody has true access of it yet. But I believe in the possibility, at least. I dabble with the possibility. Why should I stop myself? Just because people think it's weird? Fuck that shit.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I think that I just think there's more to humans than we realize it, and like advancements as we or a lot of people see them now, that they think is good, like what a lot of people would call technology is not necessarily at all. That's why I say to move forward. It's like we need to move back. Like people were worrying about like
what if there's a vault, right?
but people are worrying about AI. It's like maybe we're already the AI. Yeah. We're the AI. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like oh, we've got to work. We've got to do computers. When COVID came, I was thinking, wow, like this is just forcing us into like boxes where people have to work from home, and you know the next step is like you'll just be a brain of mush in a jar or something like that, right? Like I don't know, it's
people are scared of algorithms on AI and not scared of psychic attacks from just intentions. Like the witchcraft community will be like, witchcraft community will be like, oh, you guys are scared of AIs and algorithms? Wait till you see what we can do.
Well, that's what I also thought when COVID came. So like imagine, like I believe like the Earth culls humans.
It's flat, right?
Oh, it's definitely flat. It's 100% flat. No, like I believe like the Earth culls humans. Like natural disasters is a way of like just there's too many humans. Like you know like Ebola comes out of the jungle when people go too deep into the jungle sort of thing, and I think like the Earth maybe just sort of goes we need a little bit less of you sort of thing. You're making too many medicines and you're living too long. So imagine if you know the universe had like a collective consciousness, so every animal, human and other animals, all their consciousness went up to form one. And then that universal consciousness, maybe plants as well, then decided like, made decisions. Like, and if there's too many humans, absolutely, they would say, we need less. So how about we like give a little bit of this and just bring it down a level?
Yeah,
maybe.
Look, at the end of the day, my dabble and all these things that I've just shared in the last 2 hours is not final.
No.
And nor am I censoring myself from saying I am it. What I'm saying is I am confident in dabbling with the possibility. I don't limit myself from the belief just because science doesn't have proof of it. Once upon a time, Malay people thought the earth was flat. This was also in my stand-up set for the Roast of Raffles, part 2. And a scholar
in all good high school stores, right?
And a scholar from the community who travelled west and learned that the earth was round had to convince Malay people that it's round, and Malay people refused to believe in it. Once upon a time, Malay people believed wholeheartedly the earth was flat.
Yeah.
So who are we to be so ego in our belief system that we know everything we know now? I think a real Muslim would never assume he knows everything about the world and everything about God's magic. I think you're more a real Muslim if you believe that than you believe, no, this is it. Because I still hold on to my practices, I still hold on to my belief system, I still hold on to the things that's taught of me in Sunnah. But I'm also okay with exploring.
No, I think it's really cool. Like I really mean that. Like I think it's cool how you found this comfortable place and you can be open to both. And I think it's how it should be. I talk to Allah more times than ever. Like, and I'm unabashed Muslim now. Like I will mention His name in front of someone who's not Muslim and say, yeah, you know what, Allah did a funny thing this morning. And before you were,
I would censor myself from being a Muslim.
Like because it was more private or something.
Yeah, because I thought like nobody needs to know what being a Muslim is about. But now, when I say Allah to you, I'm gonna assume if you're a Christian and you think Jesus is God, that we're talking about the same person, baby. That I just happen to call him a different name, and we just happen to have different rituals for him. But I accept. I gave him this analogy just now. I think religions are just all different languages. The end of the day, God is like a mom, and all the different religions are children from different baby daddies.
Maybe.
They all speak a different language around the continents of the world, but just because you don't speak the other language, don't I as a mom answer to my kid anyways when you call for me? That's my analogy.
So what if you have no religion? Where am I?
If you don't have a religion and you believe in science and you believe in good and your purpose is just to live, then you're not affecting anyone, is it? I think the trouble with religion is they're trying to outprove each other. And I'm telling you, what if you're all correct?
That's the thing. People always, they're fighting for their team.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Not
You don't-
fighting, but, well, in some cases fighting. Yeah.
There is no need to prove the other person is more right than the other. Just live. And the atheist, in the sense, who doesn't shit on religious people, hopefully, because I know atheists who do, he's living his own life. He's already doing God's work. To live in your existence, to be, to not cause harm in your lifetime. Your body is on rent. It's loaned to you this lifetime. What you do with it is so purposeful. I think to any kid who feels suicidal or depressed, if there's anything I could take away from spirituality and I can share is when you realize how precious your body on loan is, you are not your body. You are the energy within your body. You are the consciousness and the will within your body. Your ego is not you. Your emotions are not you. You are the efforts of your conscious and your will. The choices you make, that's you. The things you do to your body, that's you. If you realize that everything else is just an extension of a timeline you have, you start to feel grateful for everything. I remember one time we had this meditation event. It was a yoga thing. It was a gong meditation. And the person said, please write down in your intention card what you're grateful for. And I remember crying. And it was so embarrassing because there were all these other influencers who are my friends. So I remember crying on the mat because I couldn't find what I was grateful for. At that point of time, it was a very tough time in my life. And I could not write what I was grateful for. It was so hard. I said, what the fuck am I grateful for? There is nothing to be grateful for.
That sucks.
But that's because I didn't see the bigger picture, that this body right now, this pulse I feel, this acne on my scars, the tired lines on my
Or
face,
the air that you're breathing.
is all on loan. And as long as I have it, I can do something about it. These days, I wake up and I feel a pulse, or I close my ears and I hear the birds from 5 kilometers away chirping, and I feel gratitude, and I understood what gratitude is. And in spirituality, they say when you're grateful, the abundant doors open and opportunities finally come your way because you finally understand the extension of your existence. And when this body is gone, your will still lives. We never know how to measure that in barometer or whatever. Right? We don't know how to measure will or the energetic exchange when you depart from your body. But your body is just for a while, and then whatever happens to you after, who is to know? So appreciate it. When you feel ugly, and if you want to do something about it, there's nothing wrong with that as well. But know that the fact that you have it is a blessing. And I mean, even someone who's handicapped, for example, the fact that you don't have it and you have something else, there is gratefulness to just having this capsule of it. It's so fucking precious what we have. When I realized that, I chose life. The other day I was so busy. Oh my god. The other day I was so busy. And it was almost like I didn't get a vision of my styling. It was for the Red Cup event. And I remember we were waiting for food, and I was at a rooftop with this girl, and I said, oh my god, 11, let's make a wish. So I said to the God, I said, Allah, I just want the red dress to come on time. I literally had a superficial wish. I just want the red dress to come on time. And you know what? If you will for it to come, I believe that it is in your vision to know that that was the best option. And if it doesn't, it is in your vision that it was also it was my best option, whatever I put on Munah. sorry, I said to him in a joke, I said, also because like, I'm not earning from this, like I spent all the budget on the dress. And I said this, and I stopped and choked. I said, I just want to feel alive. And then my mind just charted a journey through 2021 where I didn't choose it. And how grateful I was to just feel passionate, to be alive, to be a creative. And I thanked him for it. I just want to feel alive. And I choked and I said, that's what this was about. That's why I was so busy in November. I just wanted to feel alive again. And I feel fucking alive now. I'm able to be grateful for pulse and hearing birds 5 kilometers away. That's enough. I'm broke. My art's not making money yet in a pandemic.
No, but
I'm fucking grateful.
Yeah, and that's like a wonderful currency, right? Just to be grateful and allow yourself to be grateful. Like you talk back to the moment where you didn't have anything to be... You had things to be grateful before, but you just couldn't see them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
What an egoistic bastard that depressed boy was. I'm not saying depressed people are egoistic bastard, but me.
You know what it is? You keep talking about 2020.
Yeah.
It's 2020 vision, right?
Yeah.
It allowed you to see.
Yeah. So grateful. And now I always say, I wish you meaning. Because good or bad, that's meaning. I don't shit on my bad experiences. I'm fond and thankful for it. Yeah. I needed it for the growth. And I look forward to 2022. Because according to astrology, my year is going to be good. Which will segue into your birth time. Have we found that out yet?
No, my mum didn't ring back.
Your mama doesn't.
Next time you come back again. I'll have my birth time ready, and you can.
Yes, sir.
You can. What would you be doing?
I'll be able to just predict your personality,
okay,
your ambitions, how you love.
Okay.
So,
all good things to know.
Yeah. And if I know your partner's charts,
right,
I would be able to also predict 80% accuracy, your relationship dynamics, what you guys fight about, what you hate about each other, and what you love about each other.
So I won't have to live on because I'll know what it's going to be like.
Not necessarily.
I can just relax and just like go into a nice long sleep and sail off into the sunset.
The confusion people have about astrology is the idea that you must find a 100% compatible match, and that's not true. When you know what your partner is and you've decided that this is the love of my life, knowing astrology is just like sort of knowing their personality type test. It's like, so you're like this is how I will then communicate with you. Because not everyone have the same love languages.
Right.
And so, for example, if yours is sense of touch and mine is acts of service, I will continuously want to do things for you, but you get restless and irritated by it and flustered because, why are you doing this for me? It's me telling you I love you. If I realize yours is just sense of touch, I would just reflect that and touch you instead and tell you, hey, mine is acts of service. So that to me is what astrology sorts of help. I subscribe to it like enough, you know. The possibility of it.
I have one quick thing to tell you. So 2020.
Yes, sir.
So you know, like in numerology, I forgot the number of it. It was supposed to be a very good year for me, and I think it was, because my birthday is 0202. So it was 0202 2020.
I'll see.
Yeah.
2222. That's in numerology. Was that when you found a relationship? Was that a year you got into a relationship? Was it
yes,
early?
It's that year.
So 2 in numerology, which I also read about, is the relationship number.
Makes sense.
So the fact that it appeared a lot that year, it presented to you a relationship lah. Yeah, that's as much as I'm gonna say.
Cole, Az was saying something about 2nd 2020 as well, no?
Oh yeah, probably. I get a lot.
Probably.
I
Gets a lot of that information.
We need to bring her in on that astrology
I think you
episode.
two together would be pretty good.
I think they would be. Yeah.
As is down the rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe we should call it there. I think it was like a really good and
lovely.
interesting chat.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to
I
tell?
need to stop crying every time I appear on an interview. I've been doing that a
every
lot.
time.
No, so
I thought this was special.
what I shared was a first time, but I think 2020 has just made me so emotional, and like little things I feel it here.
No, but it's also, you talk about ego. It's
shed it.
yeah, because
Like
there's a
wouldn't
stigma around crying. That crying's a bad thing. A kid cries with due course and every reason to, and an adult says, "Don't cry."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like it's shedding that ego and,
I think
and
it's-
just
yeah,
allowing
it's
yourself.
just a
Crying's
real
very
idea.
healthy.
Thank you.
No, I think it is.
I
Like
lost weight.
it's there. No, it's there for a reason, right? It's a release of emotion.
Yeah.
It's there in us for a reason. I'm honoured that you would shed a tear at our table.
I didn't shed a tear. I was just choking. That's the
Okay,
difference.
okay.
I
Maybe
told
next
myself,
time.
I literally told myself, nah, there's nothing to cry about. I'm very grateful.